Hello and welcome to the Yerky Boys. May the Kandrona shine and strengthen you. My name is Will.
My name is Jonathan.
And we are the Yerky Boys. This is book 50, the ultimate. The ultimate
Released,
book and episode.
released in January 2001.
The ultimate year.
We made it. We made it to the turn of the new millennium. Right? Because remember, 2000's not really... That was the whole thing, right? Because the world started in the year 1. Right? There was no year 0. So it's not actually the new millennium until 2001.
I don't think anyone says the world started in the year 1.
What are you talking about? That's when Jesus Christ was born. We started in the year 1. Oh, no, wait. It was before Christ. That's what that means.
Well,
Anyway.
but this is after Christ.
Oh, maybe it's before Cassie.
What? That's okay. Yeah, I think I see what. Yeah, no, I think that's right because because that would have been the first year of Christ's life, not he has been alive for a year and change. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying. You see what I'm trying to say.
I think what you're saying makes perfect sense and is correct.
Thank you. Well, exciting episode today. Book number it's 5-0. It's 5-0.
The big 5-0.
Uh-oh. Hope the cops aren't coming.
Stupid.
To arrest us because our podcast is too good.
I
mean, this is 50 is a big milestone, but also after this, there's only 4 books left.
Yeah.
That's a month. We have a month's worth of book content left.
It's crazy.
That's absolutely
basically
wild.
Fucking done.
It doesn't feel like we're done. I'm not ready for that. I'm not prepared for it.
What are we going to do? We're going to have to
shit.
Yeah,
we're going to think of something.
We're going to talk about a TV show and not books. I don't know what I'm going to do when I don't have a new book to read every week.
It might suck. There's a good chance it sucks. But it already sucks, so
no, it'll be good. It'll be really good.
Yeah.
It'll be your favorite podcast. Do we have any pre-show business?
We do. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to hear a sharing?
The sharing.
All right, we got to check in this week once again from our good friend Lane, loyal listener.
Hi, Lane. Loyal writer too.
Mm-hmm. Long-time listener, long-time writer, and we have they wrote some things. we have words to read, but I think it's going to be good. I think it's a good one. We always like to hear Lane's thoughts. You ready?
Long lanes, like that movie.
I do not know what.
Long
lanes. I see now. Yeah.
I probably just shouldn't talk. You should just read this email. It's better than anything I have to say.
Subject line is, and now they know. Referring to the fact that, everyone, they now know in the books about the Animorphs. It's a new milestone.
Yes.
Yeah. Lane writes, "Hi again, capital B boys. Here's another long one for you, since you seem to be clamoring for emails, and I have a lot of thoughts. Tongue out winking emoji." By the way, that's the only emoji in this email. Sort of a disappointment there.
That's what we're really clamoring for, is the emojis.
Yeah, so this is commenting on the book we read last week, The Diversion. Lane writes, that's the one we read last week, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Lane writes, "My favorite book of the series might just be The Diversion. I always remember it fondly, and if it's not number 1, it's certainly in the top 5. I really like how the book feels like it's going back to the roots of Animorphs, as you both mentioned. It feels like the series is coming full circle in the best way. It all ends where it began, so to speak. It's funny that it's preceded by my least favorite book, The Return. I hate that book with a passion because it's so ridiculous and doesn't really do anything it's trying to do very well. I can only say that I like the end scene where Rachel and David kind of do their last very sad face-off, where Rachel most certainly had to finish the job they were all too afraid to do themselves when we last saw David. David's story is definitely tragic, as he was just a dumb kid who made dumb choices as kids do, but the Animorphs judged him rather harshly and drug him into the line of fire. Sure, he was a little shit a lot of the time, but that was their mistake to bring him in as deep as they did. Unfortunately, David paid the ultimate price. I think the return did him a disservice by just making him into a villain of the week and tossing Krayak and the Drode in there to weaken his story. The book just overall sucks, IMO. And I do think it would have been nicer to have a different book for Rachel's last single narrator one. Oh, well. You want to pause here and say anything about the return?
One thing I did really like about the return is that it gave us a David rap to go along with the Krayak and Drode rap.
That's true. You can't knock it for that.
Yeah. Other than that, I think that all basically lines up with what I was saying on the show too. So I would agree with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I agree. I still don't hate the book.
Yeah.
But it does ultimately. He does just turn into a villain of the week. That's very fair to say that.
Yeah, no, I 100%. I think we're relatively in agreement on that book, right? Which is that I think everything Lane said is true, but unlike them, I don't hate. It's not my least favorite, and I don't hate it, but I don't think it's very good either.
I don't hate the concept as much as I hate the execution of it.
Anyway,
back to the diversion, though. Lane continues. It's a tragic turn of events, especially for Jake, who will understandably never be the same afterwards. I'm really interested in the discussion to come about how everything goes down with him and the group dynamic going forward. You really have to wonder what exactly changed that made the Yeerk suddenly decide to test all of the blood from the Animorphs/bandits. What made Visser 1 finally decide to believe all the advisors who had been saying for years that the Andalite bandits were actually mostly human? I do wonder if he remembered his encounter with Rachel and put two and two together. He saw her as a weird human thing and saw her morph. I wonder if that somehow made things click, despite how ridiculous everything in that realm was. I'm not sure what else would make sense as a trigger for the sudden shift in tactics and beliefs. It's just a shame that nothing is actually made clear in text for that. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think I said this on the podcast. I don't mind it so much because it's so obvious and it was so like dumb of him not to notice that it's kind of just like, I feel like it could be any old thing. I don't mind. I think in my headcanon, it's less that Visser 1 finally decided that it was worth listening to the advisors and more that old lady granny controller was like, oh, she got enough leeway to do this pet project test. You know what I mean? And she kind of independently did it. And then when she actually had proof, it's like, oh, here, Visser 1, now I have proof. But it's not in text. It doesn't bother me that it's not in text, but I can see why it would.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me too much, but it does feel like there should be something there. Like, it is weird that there's just nothing. Like, here's an idea. We didn't like old Visser 1's death. If I could remember their Yeerk names, I'd say it, but I don't.
Edris,
right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm not even going to bother to try to have you remember the numbers.
No. But maybe like her last action before her death could have been, I know they're humans. I'll get my revenge on them by getting that info out there somehow before I'm squashed. Mm-hmm. Like, that could have been cool. Just, I don't know. There's something you could have done. Maybe in the return, maybe David fucking is like, I also met a Yeerk, and guess what? I told him the truth. Like, you could have just thrown that in there. Mm-hmm. Whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Maybe Chapman finally asserted himself. I don't know. Who cares about Chapman?
I do. All right, Lane. There's more. Lane goes on. Mm-hmm. Again, with the diversion now. On the subject of the snakes meaning things. Remember, there were snakes in this book, and we were trying to figure out if there was symbolism there?
Wait, I don't remember this.
The repeated Tobias was trying to eat a snake.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was still thinking about the David book. Okay.
That's why I said back to the diversion again.
You're right. I didn't listen.
Use your ears. It could be a reach, but perhaps the key is in the symbolism of snakes in Western society in general. Snakes are generally a same symbol of danger, and the whole book is about being so close to and trying to avoid danger. Maybe a foreshadowing of sorts, since Tobias didn't see the rattlesnake in the grass at first, and barely missed being struck by it, nor did he see the risk of the person wielding a bow, unexpected danger, when he tried to confront the snake / symbol of danger. Do you buy any of that?
This feels like a punch up where you're told to improve the work, but you're also told that you can't cut anything from it unless like it's in the text. But I sure you can read it that way.
Why not? I don't know. Sure. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Why not?
Why not?
I mean, that's fine. It's not. I think our confusion, or maybe more your confusion. I mean, I guess the confusion was symbolic too, but for me, it was also like it didn't come up not just thematically, but like usually it's also like, oh, Tobias learned to hunt better or something. But it was just like, hey, here's just a little thing Tobias is doing.
Yeah. I mean, like I when you don't have that second scene with the bow in the garden, yeah, it is. I kind of
That's
like the
fair.
idea of having a slice of life of Tobias at the beginning, as opposed to every single time it's got to be some. But my hawk self and my human self and the dichotomy, like that's cool. I like that. But like, maybe one time it can be a slice of life, especially now that he's more settled in. But yeah, the second time does feel like it's either padding or it's reaching for something, and I don't know what it would be reaching for. To me, it feels like padding, but sure.
Yeah. I do think it's that second one that's weird. Also, just because, as we pointed out, it's just like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Just shooting at hawks.
Right.
It's just weird.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if that makes the book better for you, read it that way. That's fine.
More importantly, Lane says, on the note of Tobias being blonde, if you remember, he's always been blonde. The only reason that he became dirty blonde is because the original model for the covers had brown hair, so it had to update for the books. So really, the new model is more accurate. Yeah, I mean, I do remember this. I still stand against it. I don't give a fuck what the books say. I don't agree.
Also, yeah, I mean, I don't think the books do say he's blonde. The book says he's blonde, and then the books start saying that he's not because they changed the model, just like the one book said Hork-Bajir kill each other every 7 years or whatever the fuck, and then the books stopped saying that because she changed her mind.
Also, maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out in a few weeks, but isn't the actor in the TV show Tobias also have brown hair? I don't think he's blonde.
I think so, but I don't really remember. We'll find out.
I mean, yeah, but anyway, there's
I'm sure you will have a lot of comments on the casting of these actors.
Can't wait. All right, let's conclude here.
Yeah.
In upcoming books, there are definitely a lot of questionable things that happen that could have been handled better. Much like the blindness in this book was handled questionably, I'm interested in your feelings about the outcome of the next book in particular, as well as other things related to it later on. The last book is a doozy in multiple ways, but I won't go into that now. Either way, like you both mentioned, I do wish that some of the plot lines were threaded better throughout the previous season of less than stellar books. Anyway, I'm looking forward to your analysis of the end of the series. It's a wild ride with bumps here and there, but at least there's a lot of momentum to keep the plot going. Get ready to watch the Animorphs ride by the seats of their morphing suits. Until next time, Lane.
If they still have those, which is unclear in the text.
Yeah, well, there's probably some more talking about that today, too. Yeah. It'll never end. That stupid bullshit we will never stop talking about.
That's right. Yeah, and we will be talking about that thing that Lane alluded to when we get to it.
We sure will. Yeah, this will be an interesting book. I think there's some stuff to chew on here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're in the end game, and these last two books are both massive status quo overhauls. So, expect that sort of thing now.
Yeah, I'm expecting it. I'm in it.
All right.
It's a little scary, after we had like so many books of bullshit. And now it's like I'm scared. Like I don't know how to handle it so much so fast.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but I'm not gonna lie. As a kid, this book was scary to me in a way, like because of some of the ways that things were shaken up in a way that last book was like, oh, cool, we get to do new things, and yeah, we'll get to it. It'll be fun. This is a fun book.
It's a fun episode.
A fun, well, not yet. So far, we're just bullshitting about emails. Nobody Lane likes it because we're talking to them, but everybody else is like, "Why do you always do this email bullshit?" I think.
No,
Probably.
no. What do you say? Lane's thoughts are more cohesive and interesting than any of ours.
I mean, I suppose that's true. Why are you
People
listening
like
to this
that.
podcast if you want cohesive thoughts, though?
Yeah. Anyway, if you're listening to this right now out there, you can email us. Let us know what you think about The Diversion, The Return, or any book you want. Doesn't matter. It could be fucking The Message. I don't care. Any of the books.
Yeah. Imagine
Email
us
us.
responding to you as opposed to responding to some other person. Wouldn't that be so cool?
It'd be wild. TheYerkyBoys@gmail.com. And if you like the show, you can also go to patreon.com/TheYerkyBoys. Just like Lane is a patron, you can become a patron for $5. You get bonus episodes every damn week.
Wow. There's no need to swear in the plug, though.
And you can hear that David rap that was alluded to earlier.
You sure can. All right. All right, this book. So, okay, we're back to Kimberly Morris for this book.
Kimberly.
Remember, she did book 38, The Arrival with the Andalites. She's doing all the evens from now on, so she's going to have one more after this. She's going to do 52 as well.
And she also did Elaine's favorite, The Return.
Right, exactly.
So a similar thing to... It's very interesting with these ghostwriters when it's like... when you only have 2 books to go on, and they're pretty different... in both tone and quality, arguably. And it's like, who is this person? What is their identity? And when you only have 3 I think I might know that by the time we finish the 4th book this author wrote. But when you only have 2 or even 3, it's hard to get a read on how much was KA's fault. Not even saying that I don't think like all this writer's books are bad or anything, but it's like, it's just hard to know what exactly is their doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think once we get to 52, we'll have a pretty clear comparison point. Because of that, it's like 49 is really where we start hitting the end game, and at that point, we'll have 2 Lisa Hargreaters and 2 Kimberly Morrises in the end game. So, like, we'll have a pretty good sense of like who's who between them. So, okay, here's an interesting thing about this, looking at Seropedia. Okay, this is timeline stuff for this book. And when I say interesting, I mean this might mean that we just say, fuck it, let's not even try to pretend that we have any idea how long these books, where they take place. So, okay, Cassie mentions The Patriot, the movie, which is released in the United States on June 30th of 2000. She also mentions their current disappearance from school, meaning that it is the school year and not summer vacation. So that means that it is at the very earliest, like late August of the year 2000. In the unexpected, we were able to pin it to January of 2000 because it was the middle of summer, meaning that somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 8 months have passed between these last 2 Cassie books, which doesn't really sound right to me personally, because nothing really happened that season.
The last Cassie book being
the Australia, the Unexpected.
God, that's the last one, huh? Yeah. The Patriot. I thought that got mentioned in this book. It does, right?
Yeah, in this book it does, which is how they place this book as being at the earliest September.
And the previous one was January.
And the previous Cassie book would have been January. Cassie book. Yeah.
I mean, it's not it's not so crazy to me. I'd have to sit down and look at it because I don't remember what happens in these books from week to week. But at least I thought it's not like, oh, the last book was January, like it's not something. Yeah. It does feel like more should be happening.
Yeah, I guess that's really the problem, because if we said each book happened a month apart, there would be 6 months, not like 7 to 8. And it does, but I think that is actually the issue, is that like so little fucking happens.
But this book is certainly doesn't feel like it's 1 month. after the last one. To me, it
No.
feels like this is like the next week, maybe.
Right, like, that is also the problem, is that when things do happen, they all happen bam, 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 so it feels like,
Yeah.
what, 8 months happened and nothing happened? I don't know. Just a
It's
little
it's
a
it's the
little
thing
placement
of
thing for you.
the author. They want to put in modern references because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, I know about that, and the kids reading it will know about that.
Yeah,
And they don't think about it's like a comic strip, you know. It's like, why
right.
did it take a whole week for Calvin to get to the school bus or what, you know,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck it is. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's comics time. Or how come Calvin starts school in September of every year, but he's always in 1st grade? Right, like, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, I think there is some element. I think obviously these books were not written with a real world timeline in place, and they kind of try to slap one on retroactively occasionally. So
Mhm.
having that sense is a little bit difficult. It is just a shame because that, having a sense of time here does matter. There's a big difference between reading about 13-year-olds fighting and killing and 16-year-olds. It's fucked up either way, but like, it is different. And also, like, at some point you might think, oh, did they shift from middle to high school at any point in there? And if so, is Chapman still their vice principal? These are things that I like are kind of relevant to how I perceive the text, and they just aren't considered, which is too bad, but
I think we've talked about that before,
mhm.
because I mean, I know we've talked about that specific, like whether or not what school they're in, but it just feels like a missed opportunity when you could have had you should be reading about them graduating and going to high school.
Mhm.
Like, there should just be a book about that. They should be dealing more with being kids in
Yeah.
addition to being Animorphs.
I mean, especially because of all of the Yerks that were tied into their kid life in the beginning. Like we just
Yeah.
don't do that anymore. The Yerk enemies are like Taylor or whatever, right? Not like my principal or my brother or my classmate or whatever.
Hate to say it, but somewhat similar to the trajectory of a certain TV show that rhymes with Schmuffy the Schmampire Schmayer.
I don't think you hate to say that at all.
And it's not the last time I'm going to bring that up this
I
episode.
think you actually love to say that.
Maybe. Okay.
All right.
Cover?
Let's do this cover.
Settle in, folks. Uh,
Finally doing this cover. Cassie's turning into an owl.
who?
That's funny.
Yeah, you could have said Cassie, or or you could have said, that's
Yeah.
right, an owl.
Yeah, I
Could have
would have
yes
been.
anded that joke.
Yeah,
Be pretty funny. People would have liked it.
I do think that it's funny. I recall. I think it was Nick No Name who wrote in an email talking about how like they have all these boring morphs going forward, and listed off like how many covers were just birds. And it is true. Like, we're getting in here, we're having these really exciting books, and it's like, listen, but Cassie doesn't. She doesn't get any new morphs. We have to make her turn into an owl because, like, that's the one thing she turns into that we haven't done yet.
Yeah, at least in the last book, the dog was plot relevant.
Hmm.
This owl, doesn't matter at
Yeah.
all. It's one scene. It's like it's completely forgettable.
Just you wait until I announce the next book.
I'm looking forward to it, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is that is maybe a shortcoming of this book before we even get started.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't want, like, yes, it's better than forcing a morphin that just to have a new morph,
Hmm.
I guess. So maybe this is just rose-colored glasses. I'm just nostalgic, but it's as an Animorphs book, you still part of the fun. You want to see them become a fucking, I don't know, whatever. She maybe part of the thing is, I'll be an albatross this week. I don't fucking know. Something
Hmm.
new. You don't really, but I understand why that's not necessarily happening anymore, but it does feel like that is one part of the Animorphs formula that's kind of been lost.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that because we're moving into the end game, and I'd rather just see it play out than have the new morph shoehorned
It's
in. But
only
yeah,
because it's the monthly book format
right.
makes it feel like, oh, there should be something cool and special in each book in that regard.
Yeah. I
Whereas
mean,
if this were a TV show, I'd be like, whatever.
yeah. It's sad because there are cool and special new things in this book, but like because of the formula for how the cover is done, you can't use that. So it's
Right.
got to be what
Yeah.
Cassie turns into. Anyway,
Right.
I do
Yeah.
I do like this owl because listen, owls are cute. Who doesn't like owls? I like this mid morph where Cass is an owl person. It's
I don't
fun.
really like it.
It's
I
like
don't really like the mid morph.
It's like a cartoon character. You know what I mean?
I just don't. I feel like the look on Cassie Owl's face is judgy. It's giving me Karen vibes.
Well, Cassie is kind of a judgy character.
Yeah, that's true.
Owl
Just like,
from
really?
Winnie the Pooh is kind of a judgy character.
You're eating what for lunch? That's not
Meat?
free range.
Yeah, that's right.
I like the final owl because it's kind of making me think, oh, really? Remember the oh, really owl?
I do.
Yeah,
I do
Lane does not
that.
remember that
Yeah.
as a Zoomer.
As a Zoomer, which we know they are.
Lane's
been
like,
established.
skibbity toilet? Nah. Oh, really, owl?
Yarly.
The quote says, don't say Yarly.
That's how you say it.
No, that's not how you say it.
Orly and Yarly.
The quote says, now there are no more secrets.
4 dots.
That's pretty good. I wish it were maybe on 2 lines. It feels like it goes too far on the cover.
Now I will, that has to be done with the inner cover quote as well. I'll just jump to that because the inner cover is no more lies, ...
No more lies. No more lies.
Secrets.
No more lies.
No more lies.
No more lies. It's the Rage Against the Machine song.
No, yeah.
Okay.
You don't really sound, anyway.
I don't want to scream on the podcast right now, okay? I was trying to just get the intonation across.
Sure. I don't know. Do we care about this owl?
I think we can move on from the owl.
I mean, it's pretty. It's just an owl. This inner cover is also just an owl.
What the fuck? This sucks.
I mean, this is how she uses the owl in the book. She flies to a building at night. She's got to fly and it's night.
The crazy shit you could have drawn on the inside, it's just an owl in front of a building. Who cares?
Yeah.
Is there even a fucking Orson in one of these windows? Come on.
Not that I know of. I see a person in the corner.
Yeah, I don't know who that creep is. I don't like him.
No, I mean, it's one of the most boring covers.
Yeah, this is really...
And inner covers.
It is very disappointing. I mean, if you don't know what's going on with the Animorphs at this point in the series, you see this book, you're like, I don't want to read this one.
Yeah, here's some more fucking owls for you. If this was the first time they had to morph owl because they were doing a night mission and there was some cool night mission stuff, that'd be one thing,
but no.
Cassie flies to a building in this book. Like that, full spoilers, what she uses the owl for is to fly to a building at night.
I think we have to ask the question that we ask every week. What does the title mean?
Well, it's the last book. Remember how last book was penultimate and there are 50 books in the series?
Yeah, then the next book is the post-ultimate.
The post-ultimate.
The ultimate epilogue.
This is the ultimate Animorphs book. This is the Animorph. If you were going to read one Animorphs book, it should be this one.
It doesn't. What the fuck does it mean? Why do they call it that? The ultimate what? I don't know what that refers to.
Yeah, I don't.
Nothing.
I feel like at the end, some of these upcoming titles are just them trying to think of like cool superlative words because like we're toward the end now. People, aren't you excited? Aren't you hyped? This is
At least in
it's
the
the
diversion,
ultimate.
there was a diversion. Like,
Yeah, technically.
you can't even. What's
Yeah,
ultimate?
yeah.
All right.
I don't. You're
Okay.
right.
All
Listen,
right.
you're right.
Okay. Okay. All right. They should have gone with the Norwegian title.
What's the Norwegian title?
Iterpunktet.
That's pretty good.
And I see that their quote is on 2 lines, which is how the American one should have been. Okay. Let's start the book.
Okay. Let's start the book.
Okay. Kind of tired now. You want to just save it for a part 2?
Yeah, I think it's part 2 time.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, everyone. No,
this episode was brought to you by BetterHelp. No, go ahead. Sorry, everyone just got fucking flashbacks, started convulsing.
Okay. All right, so we open up on an action sequence, one of those. Remember they're all in the Valley of the Free Hork-Bajir now, though. The Animorphs and their parents, because their identities were revealed last time. And there are like Hork-Bajir invading, and it's like, oh shit, oh no, we gotta get out. Cassie like dives into a trench and she morphs into a cockroach. There's like a series of buried pipes that they have to escape through, and so she's scurrying through the pipes as a cockroach. She gets out of the other side, and she demorphs. And when she does, she sees all of the other Animorphs already in their battle morphs because she was too slow. And Jake yells at her, and Toby shows up and is like, "All right, you guys failed. You're all dead." Because it turns out, surprise, it was a drill. Right? They were drilling what happens if the compound gets invaded. And Cassie was too slow, and also all their parents fucked it up too. And Toby's like, "Yeah, we better hope we don't get attacked anytime soon." All right. So before we get into the big stuff, here this intro scene.
Yeah, it's another gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And they did get me.
Yeah. It is another gotcha. They do get you. It's a little bit better than like it was all a dream though, because there's real consequences, right? Where it's like, rather than just being like, oh, it's like, oh, they kind of suck at this better. That's not so good. It's ominous or whatever.
Yeah, it is better. It's also shorter than, for instance, The Return. I mean, we don't need to go into that.
It's one chapter. It's not the fucking, but it's just like a replacement for your standard. I mean, I guess that is sort of a thing, is that I think that is relevant instead of doing like a standard slice of life thing that, well, it is a standard slice of life thing. It's just that now their life is this military compound, right?
Yes. It's not, I think it's just after The Return, I'm now just so wary of it's not like that was the first time they've ever done this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's not that frequent, but as of late, I'm just like, I'm kind of tired of this trope of the just kidding, it's not real. Like you could have, because you could have just told us it wasn't real up front. It didn't need to be a surprise. That's only there to fuck with you and make you go like, whoa. But
and can I say something else about that? This book also does not open on a "My name is Cassie." It opens on like some action in an action scene, and then eventually leads into it. I went back and checked. This is the way that Kimberly Morris has opened all of her books. None of them have a "My name is." They all open on some like action happening.
I was gonna say I did remember Australia specifically was that.
Well, she didn't do Australia. That's the other one.
Oh fuck.
Well, but The Return was that, and so was The Arrival.
Okay, interesting. It reminded me of the Danger Room in X-Men.
That's
because that's a thing they do.
Yeah. Isn't there a line in the cartoon where they're like, somebody's like in the danger room and somebody else is like, what? In the danger room? That's dangerous. I remember something like this. It's stuck in my head from years ago because it was so stupid.
I like it. I was a little confused at first in this scene because I didn't really understand that they were in the Hork-Bajir Valley. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, is that where they are? Like, I assumed that's where they were,
Hmm.
but they didn't really say it. And then they were like talking about pipes that they built, and I was like, what? Like, where did you build pipes? What is this?
Yeah, I mean that is like you were saying. The fact that it's gotta we can't know that it's real does hurt that because like it makes sense to be like, okay, we're in the Hork-Bajir Valley. Okay, we're trying to fortify it. We're trying to build like yeah, we gotta lay down. We gotta have what happens if we get invaded. Well, let's lay down pipes. We can get out as cockroaches. All makes sense. But like if you're trying to do it, you know, in the middle of the scene and you're not actually saying the truth about what's going on, then you know it becomes much more muddled.
Yeah, well, and you have to write Cassie's perspective without her revealing what she knows.
Right, yeah.
For no reason. Like, there's not a reason she would conceal this from herself or anyone else.
Right.
It's just for the reader. Like, that's what annoys me. It's just a completely invented, arbitrary device just to get you,
Mhm.
which is lame.
Yeah.
But again, it's not. It's fine. It's not terrible. It's just
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
just annoying.
Yeah. I mean that's basically all I like I don't I think that's annoying, but it's not a huge deal for the rest of the book.
Kind of rude. I don't like that Cassie says she hears the sound of Hork-Bajir. It's just she hates that sound.
Well, they're
She's like,
because the sound
but
of them coming to kill her.
yeah, but she doesn't say that. She just says she hates the sound of Hork-Bajirs.
Hmm.
Those are her friends.
Hmm.
She shouldn't say some shit like that. It's rude.
You say that shit all the time about
I
your
never said.
friends.
My friends aren't fucking Hork-Bajirs. It's a sound I seriously don't enjoy. The sound of Hork-Bajir.
Just replace Hork-Bajir with your voice, and you've told me that like 100 times. I don't think you have any room to complain about Cassie here.
If you were a Hork-Bajir, I'd like you. It'd be fun. You'd be talking about bark.
That's
I
true.
could teach you about the Constitution.
Bark good.
You'd be a little dumber and easier to manipulate. We'd get along great.
I do wish I was a Hork-Bajir.
I know. Cassie also, at one point in this opening scene, refers to her skin as being supple, which I thought was a little bit weird. I didn't like that.
I didn't notice that because I'm not a weirdo.
Well, I think, no, it's because you are a weirdo. So to you, that's not weird because weird things are normal to you. Because she turns into a cockroach and she's like, once my skin was supple. I'm like, what? That's not a word people just use to describe their skin. That's not the first word that you're going to come up with. It's
Maybe
strange.
you just don't love yourself enough.
Yeah, maybe Cassie just has a really good skincare routine, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't.
We all know how like
Wait a
how
minute.
feminine and like concerned with appearances she is. She's not covered in calluses and horse shit.
Well, I guess every time she morphs, those calluses go away.
Yeah.
So actually, all the Animorphs probably have perfect skin, right?
I think you're right.
Like no acne or anything, because every time
Yeah.
they morph, they're just coming out. You don't have to shower either.
That's true. Because the dirt falls away every time you morph.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
That's enough of that. All right. So post training. Let's just go through all this shit. So Rachel's like freaking out and pissed because they failed training. Jake is like barely keeping things together, and they all like are arguing, and they all kind of walk away from the argument. There's also conflicts happening with the parents at the compound. There's a bit where the Hork-Bajir are building shelters, and Michelle, which we learn is Cassie's mom's name, Michelle is mad because the shelters aren't like adequate. And Cassie gets pissed and is like, what the fuck is your problem? Who cares? We could all die at any moment. These are wartime shelters. Like, Jesus Christ. Naomi, Rachel's mom, tries to run away from the compound and sets off a bunch of alarms. And the Hork-Bajir drag her back, and Rachel's like, what is your problem, you dumbass idiot? And then probably uses a bunch of words they can't print in an Animorphs book. And Naomi's freaking out, and Ava has to talk her down. Cassie also meets up with like Marco, who's just like sitting around and whittling and trying not to think about the situation or take it seriously. Anyway, Cassie's like, Jake, listen, can you like talk to Rachel and get her to back off her mom? And Jake is like, no, fuck it. Let her deal with it. I don't want to talk. I don't want to deal with it, and I don't want to talk to you about my feelings either. And kind of walks away rather than taking charge. And it feels like everything's kind of falling apart. Cassie goes around and lies and tells everyone that Jake is calling a meeting. And so they all have a meeting around a campfire in the evening. Rachel's mom, Naomi, is pissed. She's like, why are we're being held prisoner here, right? Like by some stupid kids. Why should I listen to you? There must be some other way beyond fighting. Can't we negotiate with the Yerks? And Jake's like, no, you're stupid. That's not an option. And Ava backs him up. And Naomi's like, all right, listen, I'll follow Ava's orders, but not yours. And Ava's like, nope, it's got to be Jake. And anyway, whatever. They all end up voting for Jake to stay in charge. Okay. A lot of shit happens, but
yeah,
it's all basically what is going on with these characters now that they have to live together on this military Hork-Bajir compound.
This is the good shit. This is what I wanted.
Yeah. Last episode, you kind of complained that this wasn't happening.
Yes, straight up, they just came in and gave me what I said should have been happening already.
Yeah, and I remember when you said that, I knew that it was going to get fixed, and I was like, I can't just say, no, don't worry about it, they'll do it next time. That'll ruin it, it'll spoil it. So I had to be like, well, they're new, they just got there, they haven't had time yet, but now we see it.
Yeah, I mean, before I literally was saying, boy, these parents are sure adjusting so well, so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, so still that was bad because it's not like, I guess this is a retcon technically. Or you could argue that we just didn't see this. They didn't delve as deep into it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like last time, you could see it as like last time was like literally day one, maybe day one and day two. And then this is like week one. So it's like the first day, they're all sort of in shock. They're all just like, all right, let's fucking, I'm here, I guess. I'm coping. I don't even know. And then after you've had time to get used to it, it's like, all right, no, fuck this. All right, come on.
Yeah. And
I don't know, it works for me.
Sure. I mean, good enough. I'm glad it's good enough. It just should have been. They just didn't have time is the problem.
Yes, that is also true.
But like this just should have been what was happening the whole time, I think. But and now you can say, it was whatever. But, the parents are freaking out. They're appropriately saying, why the fuck are we listening to our teenage children about this? This is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting their point of view. I really like Cassie being kind of our perspective on individual characters.
Mm-hmm.
She goes around the camp and has these little one-on-one convos, and you get more dimension out of these characters than I feel like we have in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, especially the parents, right? Because you rarely get any dimension on the parents.
Mm-hmm. But even Marco too, I think.
Yeah.
And Jake, like you really are, and maybe it's Cassie is more observant and cares more about people, maybe, whatever. But I'm glad that it's in there. It's kind of like playing a video game when you go around your little campsite and you're like have a conversation with each NPC one at a time. But I like that
video game book and not a board game book, I guess.
Correct. Because we have there's so many group scenes throughout the series. And it is not as common that you just get a one-on-one conversation, which has more room for a character being a character instead of just, and then I say something type of a line.
Yeah. I feel like you've called out like every time you get Cassie and Marco talking on their own, you've called it out as something you've really liked. Maybe you're a Cassie and Marco specifically shipper.
I mean, I'm a Marco with everyone shipper is the problem. Okay. He's the perfect man. I think he has chemistry with everyone.
Oh, well, you're going to hear my Marco ships later in this book.
Okay.
I think you
Okay,
could
good.
already guess. Anyway.
Oh, there's a few candidates.
Well, other than Jake, of
Um.
course.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's high on the
Yeah,
list.
that's an
Very high on the
unrequited
list.
thing, though. That's the longing.
Cassie.
Anyway,
So these parents, we know their
yeah,
names.
we do. We know all their names now.
Gene and Steve.
Yep, that's Jake's parents.
I don't know why those names are funny to me. They're pretty normal, but I don't know. Michelle and Walter. Yeah.
Yep, I think Jake's the only one who gets a last name, so we'll know their full names too later.
That is exciting.
Yeah. Anyway, Gene and Steve, Michelle and Walter.
Eva. Well, we already knew Eva, however the fuck you want to say it. And Peter. Did we know Peter?
I don't think we knew Peter before.
Wow. And Lauren, of course.
Yeah, Lauren and Alan.
Oh. Yes. I was like, who the did I miss Alan? Oh, right. Okay.
Naomi and Dan, although they don't say Dan's name in this book, but we did know it. And there's one more Animorph. Do you remember his parents' names? I wrote them down.
David's?
Nope.
Oh, Axe's. I don't remember, no.
Norlin and Forlay. They have longer names than that, but you know.
Forlay, I kind of remember. I do not remember the other one. But
Norlin, Serenial, Kuraf, and Forlay Eskarov Maheen.
I'm glad that you included those. I'm glad we got the full set here.
Right, yeah.
That's
you
good.
Wouldn't want to leave Axe out.
That's good. They're all in there. I like that.
Yeah.
All those parents. I mean, you said Jake's the only one who gets a last name. Reading this book, it does beg the question, why aren't you telling us your last names? There's no more secrets. They know everything. You're already telling us where you are and all your plans.
Yeah.
What are you hiding now? Just start talking about shit.
Yeah, and they haven't changed. They are going to change it, but they haven't changed the thing on the back of the book yet. Because remember, I mentioned this a long time ago, but it starts off like, we can't tell you who we are or where we live. It's too risky. And it still says that on the back of this book.
It's too risky.
I mean, I guess they can't say where they live, but yeah, I mean, here we got all the parents. I like that the parents can't cope with the situation very well. And I like the ways in which they can't. Like this idea that, you know, I mean, the parents they've lived comfy, cushy suburban lives, right? So they're just like, listen, can't we just go and negotiate? Like, there's got to be some way to work things out that doesn't involve, like, running away and killing, right? And it kind of makes sense that they would want to grasp at that through some sense of normalcy, that they wouldn't have internalized yet the fact that there is, like, people are dying. I get that. That makes sense, even though they're adults. And I think that's important because that is the other thing here is that, like, narratively, the parents kind of have to be in denial. They kind of have to not get it because this is a kid's book. So it's like, it's kind of important that the kids still take charge, right? Like, when you're writing this book, you kind of have to find a way to be like, Jake is still in charge. Because, like, if you were just like, yeah, well, Ava's in charge now, and the adults are all going to get morphs, then the kids are just not going to do anything, and nobody likes that.
I mean, yeah, you could do a thing that's like, now that the parents are in charge, they're like, no more morphing, and the kids sneak out and they end up actually saving the day under their noses. And then the parents are like, we realize the error of our ways. Like, that could have been a book.
It could be a thing, but I do like this idea of, like, the parental-child relationships just immediately break down. In some ways, that feels more real to me, right? Like, instead of being all like, you know, we as the kids have to sneak out and save the day, and the parents say no morphing, it's like the parents try to exert any control over the situation, and the kids are just like, no, fuck that, right? Like, we're not, I like, up until this point, we had this parent-child relationship. That is not the relationship anymore. Now we are soldiers, and you are refugees.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I do really like here is that breakdown, especially with Cassie, because Cassie was always, like, very close with her parents and hated letting them down. And Cassie's parents are often voicing the same sort of, like, kind of irrelevant moral concerns that Cassie voices, right? Like,
Cassie's
oh no,
like, is that what I sound like? Fuck.
yeah, right. Like they're like, oh no, these bomb shelters don't have adequate ventilation. You couldn't survive in there for that long. It would be inhumane to force that many people in. And Cassie's has to be like, Mom, shut the fuck up. Why are you so stupid? And it's like, yeah, it's good. It's a fun little piece of like character progression to see Cassie have to say the same shit to her mom that everybody always said to her because she is, at the end of the day, a soldier.
What do we think about where Cassie is at this point? In her final book, by the way, you didn't mention that.
It is her final book, yes.
Thank you. Because she has this great conversation with her mom, and maybe her dad too. Are there two different conversations?
Yeah.
Where she basically says what you just said. Like, she's the more pragmatic one now.
Yeah.
Which is a great dynamic. I don't know personally. Cassie's development over the course of this series has been somewhat troubled in that, as we've mentioned several times, it feels like it reached a logical conclusion in book 19.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just had to keep her treading water for a long time, and it was just sort of like, okay. And I don't know, like, reading this book, I buy it. Oh, Cassie has changed. She's evolved. It's been a long time. She's not the same as her parents are now. She's learned more. She's more world weary, etc. But I don't know that if you really look at her books and her characters and trace this path book by book, did she, like, when did she get to this point and how? Do you think that was that really illustrated and I'm forgetting or I'm missing it? Or did they kind of make a jump and just said, well, she is now? I guess we had the book, the Taxon Tobias Taylor book, where she does the shit at the end that you also, I think, didn't care for. Where
Yeah, because it didn't feel different enough from what she always does. Yeah. No, I mean, like, I think it comes down to what you were saying, that she has so many books that are just nothing with no characterization. Because, like, I don't think that if this came off the back of, like, 19, this would be a problem. This idea that, like, because it's not just that she definitely thinks this. Like, after she says this shit to her mom, she kind of reflects back and kind of doesn't like herself for saying it. She still has all of these same doubts and feelings, but, like, yeah, I think there's some sense of, like, she's always had these doubts and feelings. She had to get over it and do what had to be done. She went through an arc where she got to this point. Now she has to make that same lecture to her parents, and she feels, similar way. But you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't like having to be the person who says that to the person she used to be, if that makes sense. Like that, and also coupled with the fact that, like, you had more time to worry before, right? Like, I get to spend a bunch of time just sitting in school, sitting with my parents, being a normal kid in between missions. And now it's like, no, you're at this military compound. We're at the end. Things are ramping up. It's all on all the time. I don't have time to sit back and reflect right now. I have to be in pragmatic mode all the time, and I can worry about it after the fact. It works for me with Cassie as a character. It does feel a little discordant, but not with her character development books, just with her last, like, 3 books.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. At the end of The Departure, I remember thinking she's, like, at the height of her pacifist ideology and should be, like, it almost felt like she would just leave the group and she would stop fighting altogether. And then they were just kind of like, yeah, she's still a wolf. She's just doing the thing. Don't worry. Don't think about it. Whatever. She's doing the stuff. I don't remember getting to a point, like, it feels like what this should be is, which I think you were kind of saying, is I don't like it, but I've just sort of given up. Like, I've resigned myself to this. This is just what it has to be. I don't know that I ever felt like I got that moment, that turning point for her of I give up. I felt like we went from We just went from this is wrong and I can't do it anymore to I'm still doing it, I guess. I don't know. And now we're here.
I mean, I think part of her development over the course of the departure is going from like this is wrong and I will not do it anymore because all it's like leading to is more war and death, and the events of the departure kind of give Cassie this idea that like I can still do good like outside of the violence, like by participating in this I can still, because yeah, I've got to kill and whatever, but look at this, I managed to turn Aftran and I did it peacefully. Like there's still room for good to be done here. And it gives her like, to me there is some sense in the departure that she can continue um at the end. Not that she
If
has to give up entirely. But
mhm.
unfortunately, yeah, her later books just kind of like don't explore why that's different um in a way that would be good.
If I had read The Departure a month
Hmm.
ago instead of 2 years ago or whatever,
Hmm.
year ago, then maybe I would be able to see your position more because you
Hmm.
know it a lot better than I do. But yeah, it would just be nice if there was a little more another piece of this somewhere. I feel like I was missing, but it
That's
works in this
fair.
book.
That is fair. Yeah. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it does come down to, like, I think this works for who Cassie is and where she probably should be narratively at this point in the story. And,
Right.
like, regardless of whether you think this flows easily from the departure or you think it needs another book, it probably could use another book in between. In fact, it almost certainly could.
Yeah, like this
It,
is where she should be. I
yeah.
just wish I saw more of how she got there.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it is definitely true that Cassie has had a lot of books where she just wasn't even there. Like, not even like it's not even you were saying she's treading water. She wasn't even treading water. She just wasn't there. It was just like, yeah, Cassie's the POV. That's it. Uh,
Remember Cassie? She's back in kangaroo form.
that's right. uh,
What might have been. I do really like also
mhm.
her stuff with Jake in this section
Yes,
and the whole book.
that's a big thing in this book, I think, for
Yeah,
sure.
last book we talked about how the next book's not a Jake book, but it is a Cassie book. So
Hmm.
you see more of his perspective, and he's clearly fucking fed up.
Yeah.
This is almost this is a Jake book second after
Yeah,
Cassie for
like
sure.
that was something I was kind of paying attention to. I don't think I ever thought about it from this perspective, but like to the last book and this book really are both more Jake. Like as we get into this ending section, it kind of feels like we're doing a Jake character arc, but through the perspective of other characters,
Yeah.
right? Like we had a beginning of an arc for Jake, and then but because it had to do with family, we get to see it from Tobias and his perspective on his family, and then we get a book here where we're seeing Jake kind of start to lose it now that he's lost his family, and we get to see it from Cassie's perspective because she's empathetic and cares about him. And yeah, I mean, I'm curious if that'll continue because I've never looked at it from that perspective, right? Like Jake's story, but told through other characters.
I
But
guess you
for
kind
the
of have to. Like if you're
yeah,
building towards the end of the series, Jake is going to be pretty central to that plot.
hmm
You can't just spring it on readers in the final book. Like you have to
yeah. So I'm
build it.
curious if that's going to be something as we get into the last two, the Axe and Marco.
Mm,
uh,
my
the last two
favorites.
non-Jake more Animorphs that come up.
Mork.
Morp,
Morko.
Morco, Morpho.
Nanu Nanu.
Yeah, I love this Jake stuff. I love that Jake is not functioning like a leader. He's not confident in his ability to hold things together. He's kind of snapping. He's not talking things through with Cassie. He's not keeping things under control. It feels Cassie at some point in this book says that like Jake is the center, and like what are we going to do if the center doesn't hold, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Um
like that Jake
yeah.
also he acknowledges his how arbitrary it is that he's the leader.
Mhm.
It's like, didn't Marco just say I was the leader, so I was?
Mhm. And that's the
It's all
thing, is
good.
that it's not even arbitrary because like we've explored it. Like yeah, he got picked as the leader, but like at the end of the day he is the leader because he is the
He is the
one who
leader.
makes decisions, right? Not even
Yeah.
because he makes good decisions, but because when there's a decision and you don't know what's right or wrong, and somebody's going to die if you're wrong, Jake's the guy who can say, this is the decision, right? Whereas
Mhm.
other people break under that pressure. But can Jake withstand that anymore, right?
Yeah. That's
Um,
good.
so here's the thing, right? This book, and we'll talk about it more at the end because big deal at the end, but this book really like kind of upset me as a kid reading it.
Hmm.
Um,
Huh.
because of the fact that Jake is so uncertain here. Like up until this point, even when Jake is wondering about his leadership, there's always this like arc where he ends up being the leader and things are like, okay, Jake is holding. Like that feeling of what if the center doesn't hold, like hit me as a kid. Uh, you know what I mean? Like I had that sense of like, I don't like that Jake is not, strong in this book. I don't like that it feels like there's discord and that the animorphs are potentially breaking apart. And I don't like Jake and Cassie. There are times in here where Cassie is saying like Jake seems like a stranger or there's tension there. You had said a long time ago that yeah, Tobias and Rachel, you wonder they're like star-crossed lovers, but at no point do you ever doubt that Cassie and Jake are going to get together. And in
Mhm.
this book, this is like the first time we really see tension between the two of them. And as a kid, I remember that made me very uncomfortable. Like I was never invested in their relationship, and yet seeing it be destabilized was very upsetting to me. Which all of this is stuff that I think is really good as an adult, but as a kid, it was very upsetting and uncomfortable.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's not
Hmm.
something I actively thought about while I was reading it because, like you said, I'm an adult. I can handle shit like that now.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it is kind of an upending of the formula. You're seeing the cracks in this armor, and it is a little
Yeah.
bit more real, maybe, than it sometimes is.
Yeah, I think so. There's a bit with Cassie talking to Jake where we see a little bit more of the theme of Cassie. And we've briefly touched on this before, but it hasn't really ever been explored because the Cassie books aren't anything. But this theme of Cassie, like kind of knowing the right thing to say to get people to do things, and maybe
Hmm.
using it for evil or at least against what she wants. uh like when she's trying to get Jake to like hold strong as the leader, she calls him a coward, uh
Yeah.
and is, saying, listen, if you're a good leader you have to take charge, but if you're a failure like you think you are, then it's all your fault and it's your responsibility to fix it. Either way you got to be the leader. And it, like, as she's saying these things, she's like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? But like, you know that's how you get at Jake. That's how you hit his insecurities and make him do it.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Like I was saying a book or two ago about how I kind of wish there was an Animorphs civil war at some point.
Hmm.
There really isn't enough, in my opinion. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen. There's infighting in the books,
Hmm.
but it's often a little thing here and there. It's resolved by the end, or the next book is a whatever book, so they have to just forget it happened. And the pressure these kids are under, they should just be fucking fighting a lot more. It's almost cathartic to read these scenes. It's like, yeah, they're like, this is what it should be instead of, okay, gang, let's form Voltron and move out. It feels more realistic.
Mm. See, there's the difference between the adult and the kid. Because as a kid, you're just like, yeah, but
Yeah.
everything that I read and watch is, okay, gang, let's head out. How come that's not happening? Oh my God, what's wrong? No, something's really wrong. As an adult, you're like, yeah, that's what it should fucking be like, because something is wrong.
Yeah, there's a couple of things wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Should we
Um,
finally move on?
well, I want to ask you this.
Okay, no. Go on.
Do you
I love questions.
the part where they're like, "Hey Ava, you should be in charge," and she says, "No, no, it should be Jake because Visser One respects him as the leader." Do you buy that? I don't buy that.
I didn't not buy it.
Okay.
I didn't balk at it. I think maybe that specific phrasing is a little silly. I think it makes sense that she would be the one. She has the most insider knowledge. And so she also can say, well, Jake has been leading this group. I know firsthand how much the Yeerks fucking hate the Andalite bandits. So, like, he actually is good at this, and he should continue doing it because the rest of us have no experience. These kids have tons of experience fighting the Yeerks.
Yeah.
She doesn't say that.
Yeah, that is reason, because that's what I was thinking too. I was, because coming into this and not quite remembering the exact phrasing, I was thinking like, all right, I feel like you do want to justify this, right? Because, like I said before, Jake's got to stay in charge because it's a book for kids, and these are the kids who are the main characters. But yeah, as an adult, Naomi's 100% correct. Why are we following some 16-year-old when we could be following you, an adult, who literally was the host to the leader of the Yeerks and knows everything about how they work and was in a leadership position in some sense? Like, why aren't you leading?
She keeps running away also.
I do love that.
I mean, it feels like you could easily have, if there was more time in the series, like I could see a subplot where she just runs away and is like, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to go tell the cops or something. And she would immediately she gets yerked. Like, maybe something like that should happen just to like demonstrate, so that like the thing that really makes the parents go, okay, we realized we're like in the Beaver book when the guy dies and they're like, oh fuck, this is real.
Yeah. Only I think beforehand he was like, so you guys aren't actually going to die, right? And they're like, yes. I told you that. And they're like, wait, what?
I'm saying this book could have learned a couple of lessons from the Beaver book.
Yeah. Why they should all strive to be more like the Beaver book.
But yeah, it's it is. Does it make Visser 3-1 doesn't even know technically who Jake is. Like, he knows who the Andalite bandits are, but he doesn't even know if he's always talking to the same one.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like in this book he does know that, but it's definitely, there's no reason why he should know that.
Well, I guess now Tom would have told him.
Yeah, but how does Tom know? Tom just knows Jake's one of them.
Yeah, you're right.
Is Tom like, oh shit, you know what, Visser 1? I always knew my brother was in charge. I don't think he said that.
Well, I always see them meeting in Cassie's barn, and I guess I should have figured that out. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do think it makes sense for Jake to stay the leader for basically the exact reason you said, right? Like, Ava wasn't actually Visser 1, and she can be all like, listen, it works. Jake can do it. I know that. Yeah. It should be him because we don't act, we're adults, but we don't actually have the experience. That all makes sense. I don't know. It didn't feel like the best way to do it.
They could have fleshed it out a little more there.
Yeah. Anything else?
Nah, man, let's fucking go. This episode's gonna be long.
What about the lost art of whittling?
Yeah, I mean, I like when Marco says, I reckon.
Yeah, that's right. I like Marco as a whittler. He's a whittler. Course.
Who doesn't?
Okay. All right. Listen, I knew that section was going to have a lot because there was a lot. That's our insight into how they're living now, and now we're moving on to the plot. So, like, everything's different. We have to talk about it. All right.
I mean, it's good because how many books of late have we been able to discuss the characters in that level of depth? It's been 20 books, I think, since that happened.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. So, okay. Next morning, just the regular Animorph kids, they call a meeting, and Jake is like, all right, listen, we can't keep going like this, right? Like, the Yeerks know who we are, our sources of information are drying up, there's not enough of us, whatever. I think it's time for us to get some new Animorphs. Crazy. All right. They're not going to use their parents. Not just because their parents are kind of unfit, some of them, to do it, but also because, like, Tobias and Marco, whose parents might be able to do it, they're just like, I am not going to risk my parents' lives, right? Like, I just saved them. They're not going out on the front lines and dying. They keep talking about it. Marco's like, listen, adults are not going to believe us. They're not going to, like, let us take charge. They're going to try to go to the cops, whatever. So it's got to be kids if we're going to recruit people. And Tobias and Cassie come to the realization that if they were to recruit disabled kids, then they would know that those kids are safe and not infested because the Yerks wouldn't infest disabled people, right? Because they're vehicles or whatever the Yerk word is. The other Animorphs are like, shit, yeah, that might actually work. And very quickly, Cassie does her Cassie thing and turns around and is like, actually, I don't like this idea. Never mind. Like maybe we, but Jake's kind of feeling it, and he's like, listen, we don't have time to debate the morality on this. This is let's fucking do it. Like let's get these extra kids. Okay, so this is what the plot of this book is actually going to be about. I know we've over an hour in, but we're talking about the plot now. They're going to get some more Animorphs. They're going to go recruit disabled children to be Animorphs.
Now,
Yes.
I mean, before we continue,
as
I just want to just clear the air here because, as Jake says in this section, he says, Cassie, recruiting handicapped kids or differently abled kids or whatever we should say.
I did love that line.
What is disabled okay? Is that all right now?
Sure.
I don't know what it is. If I think that's okay, right? We could say that.
It's sure. If anyone thinks this episode is offensive, you can email us yerkyboys@gmail.com, or you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/theyerkyboys, and give us $5 a month to tell us how we're being offensive.
That would really set us straight.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we are both able-bodied individuals.
Yeah.
We're not in wheelchairs. We are not, well, you're almost blind.
I am almost blind without my contacts. That's true. If my contacts didn't work, I would be blind.
Yeah, we are both visually impaired.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Forget what I was about to say. We have every right to speak on this as authority.
Right. All I have to do is not put in my contacts, and I have like 21,000 vision. So, you know what? I count.
That actually sounds like a lot. 21,000, right. Goddamn.
You're right.
It's way more than 2020. You're like fucking Tobias. So anyway, I don't even know if we begin with this now, but clearly this is the thing here. This is going to be one of those books where we have to talk about, is this okay? Mm-hmm. How is this all handled? Mm-hmm. At first I read this and I was like, what are we doing here? Is this like the blind, the mentally ill, prisoners, juvenile delinquents? What is this army of children they're going to get? Mm-hmm. Like this, I don't know that this is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to it, but basically they're going to like a rehab clinic, children's hospital or something to that extent, is where they're going for this.
Which, look, it's even... I'll save it for later. I won't say it now. I'll save it for later. Okay. We do get more of Axe's ableism.
Yes, we get a lot of that in this book.
And now, remind me, this author didn't write this author did not write the ableism book, right? They wrote the other Andalite book.
Yeah, that was the other Andalite book.
Okay. Which is interesting because there are several references to that book. So
yes, including frequent use of the word Vikol.
Right. And they reference Myrtle by name.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have thought that this was the same author, but no, they just picked up on that. I mean, this had to be K.A.'s idea. There's no way this was a ghost author concept, ghostwriter concept. This must have been.
The ghostwriter does have a quote that I found on Seropedia about this, but I don't know that that's necessarily. I'm sure this was K.A. Applegate's idea because
it's too big a development.
Yeah, it's too huge. Like it overturns if you're just adding new Animorphs or even I mean whatever. Like that's a big deal. Like that changes a lot. So that does feel like, I can read the quote here. Kimberly Morse was quoted on Seropedia saying, "People have no idea how heroic disabled people, particularly disabled adults, really are. Isolation, segregation, and community disinterest are pretty much the norm for disabled adults. But I know this will change when and if enough people are made aware of the problems." So she was quoted as saying that.
Okay. So there's something there.
Yeah.
It's not like in the Myrtle book, for some reason, I think I felt like the author kind of had an axe to grind about that subject.
Mm-hmm.
But here, it's just if that's the prompt, you can't avoid talking about it. You must talk about it.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to the kids, but
Yeah.
I don't think that it is at this point terribly handled. I think I have some pretty big issues with it, but I think overall, on the whole, I do generally like what they're doing with it in this book.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, when we actually
We'll
get
get
to that, we'll talk about it. But it from a character plot perspective in universe, their logic does make sense. I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
Is it a little? I mean, maybe you could argue like, well, aren't there? I think it makes sense that you don't go for adults. I think they're right that adults are too. They're just not going to understand, or they won't accept it, or they won't listen to these kids, or they'll just try to go to the police or whatever.
Listen, there's a reason people recruit child soldiers, right? Because the child soldiers are much more likely to kind of like fall in line and accept it. You go to recruit adult soldiers, you got to actually recruit.
It's even more fucked up because now it's the child soldiers recruiting other child soldiers.
Right. That is actually, and this starts here, and it's not an explicit problem because it's always dancing around the edges of it. But when they talk about the ethics of this, the way that it reads in the discussion always sounds more like, oh, is it ethical to bring these poor disabled kids into this rather than is it ethical to just go recruit kids? Yeah. And that kind of discussion comes up multiple times. And it's never like explicitly like it would be okay if it was just regular kids. But somehow being disabled makes them more innocent and vulnerable or something stupid. But that language is always like, you're dancing around the edges of using that kind of language. And it is, I don't know, if I were editing this in the modern era, I would certainly say, maybe be a little more careful with the way that you're talking about that. I suppose part of the problem, though, is that if they say, like, is it ethical to bring kids into this? It's very easy for Marco to be like, we're kids, Cassie. Shut the fuck up. Right.
Which they could have had.
They could have had that. Yeah, that's true.
Maybe the worst thing you can say about the treatment of it in this book, maybe. There might be worse things. But for now, I'll say maybe the worst thing is that it definitely buys into the, I don't know, myth/trope of, oh, if you're in a hospital, you've got a heart of gold. It's like on the surface, it seems like, well, isn't that a nice thing to say? Like, oh, if you're a kid in a wheelchair, that you're a good person, but it actually is dehumanizing because it's still a stereotype and you're still reducing them to just they're a hero, right? It's, oh, what a hero. What a hero.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like there is more character to some of these characters than that. And it's hard to say how much of like that sort of
But they're all
like
heroes, aren't they? Like none of them are like dicks.
Yeah, or like if they are dicks, it's like somehow in a good way or something. I definitely see what you're saying. It's hard to see how much of that is because we're getting a selection bias on like the specific people that are chosen, and how much of that is because you know, we're going to add a bunch of new characters in this book, and let's be real, we don't have time to wrap up all the regular Animorphs and explore their characters very deeply. We just don't. So, like, how much of that is because we only see the surface of it? Maybe one of them is a Rachel psychopath, and we just don't have the time to find that out. I don't know. I do see what you're saying. Like, there is that to some degree, but I do have a bigger problem. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But yeah. I mean, let's see here. I mean, I do. Again, we have some Jake moments here. Like, Jake seems briefly like himself again here when he's like making this definitive "let's go out and do it" decision. Like I guess Jake the character is in some way linked to his ability to decide. When he loses that ability, he loses some part of himself. I like that. I also like that it doesn't make Cassie feel better because it's like Jake is deciding in such a way that he doesn't give a shit about my qualms, whereas in the past maybe he would have cared more, and she's worried about it. I like all of these sorts of things.
Yeah, you really feel like, oh, Jake and, like, I mean, well, you already said it, but are Cassie and Jake actually going to split up? It really seems like they're mad at each other. There's also a part I really liked where Cassie says, "My Jake."
Yes,
and it
my
made
Jake.
me think of my Jake, my Jake,
my Jake. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, no, it is unsettling, or at least it was for the kid me, to see Cassie and Jake on rocky ground. Like, you're not supposed to be sitting here like, man, they're fighting. Are they gonna make up or not? Who knows? You're supposed to be sitting here like, yeah, Cassie and Jake, they've always liked each other and they're just the couple. I mean, that's why it's good, but anyway.
Yeah, we get a Tidwell reference.
We do get a Tidwell reference. If only there was, like, in this book, they're like, yeah, our sources in the Yerk resistance movement have dried up, and we can't rely on them as much anymore. When did they ever? They've never done anything because you didn't write them into your books.
They've been around. Think of all the Yerk plots they foiled that we didn't see that could have been books. That's why Cassie went to Australia, is because the Yerk resistance was working so hard. They were doing their job. We also, and we're going to get into this more, so we can table it, but they do introduce the idea of what if we give them morphing powers and it heals them?
Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting because that was it just last book, or
yeah,
that we were talking about that, and I didn't expect them to really dive into it, and they really do dive into it.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like perhaps the reason, like in retrospect, maybe perhaps part of the reason they cure Lauren's blindness is to set the stage for this, so that you kind of remember that's a possibility.
Yeah.
The way they reference the Elemist one book before he comes back or something.
Yeah, it does serve that purpose a little bit. So,
little aside here, there's also a bit where they're talking about how the Yerks aren't going to potentially infest disabled people, and Rachel says, "I bet that any human controller who loses a limb is just killed." And it's just like, Rachel, how many people have you ripped an arm off of? To be fair, she's probably right, and it would make sense that Rachel's the only one who isn't lying to herself and knows full well she's murdering people. But, yeah.
Yeah. It's fucked up. That's pretty fucked up.
That's our Rachel.
Love her. And her mom, too.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So they find a clinic, right? / rehab center / whatever. Whatever it is. Like 4 kids. They fly out there. There are some shenanigans where they like steal bikes from a controller-owned bike shop, and they get chased. They have to morph roaches to get away. They end up in like a costume shop. And it's like a whole whatever. It doesn't matter. The point being that they end up heading into the center all dressed up like for a magic show, right? Because they got whatever in the costume shop. And they sneak in with a group of performing arts students who are doing a magic show for the little kids. And they're like, yeah, I mean, we're not recruiting fucking 7-year-olds, right? So they sneak away to go find the older kids. All right. So they're in the older kids ward. It's like a lot less fun. The older kids don't really give a shit about them. They're like, yeah, whatever, get out. We meet Kelly and Colette, who are 2 girls in wheelchairs. Kelly is kind of making jabs at them and being like, fuck off. Colette is nicer, but she's still kind of laughing at them. Colette, we find out, is into like extreme sports, and that's how she ended up in the wheelchair. We also meet Timmy, who is an Asian boy with a massive speech impediment, so he has difficulty getting out more than one word at a time. We also then meet James, who's like a take charge kid in a wheelchair, and we see him arguing with the nurse over getting medication to his roommate Pedro, who like can't move except blinking, blah, blah, blah. Colette is the only one who's really talking to them, so they have a conversation with her, and she tells them that, James is kind of the leader around here, so they figure, all right, we'll try talking to him about the whole Animorphs thing. All right, so this is really where we first start meeting the kids that we're gonna. I don't know if they use the term in this book, but at some point they're gonna start calling these kids the auxiliary Animorphs.
No, they call them the new Animorphs in this book.
Okay. So, but yeah, the new Animorphs, whatever we want to call them, we're starting
The
to
new
meet some of these
mutants.
kids.
Yes, we're starting to meet some of these kids. I mean, before we meet these kids, though,
Yeah.
I just need to say that the whole costume shop thing is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, you're right.
Why is that even in the book? It's so
Yeah.
unnecessary. It's
Yeah, you could easily cut like 3 chapters or at least 2 chapters of that rigmarole and just have them come straight here. It would be easy.
it's incredibly silly. I don't.
And there is something later in the book that I think is very unexplained and needs some more chapters to set it up. You could have moved 3 chapters to do that, but they didn't. So,
I mean, we do get an illustration of just how on high alert the Yeerks are right now.
yes.
Because they're patrolling like everywhere. Like they just walk out somewhere in the street,
Yeah.
and one of them recognizes them. So they're
Yeah.
fully aware of who they
Yeah,
are.
that is actually a fun, cool thing. Like they don't see animals doing weird things. They just see the Animorphs and they all know them by face. So they're like, it's them. Blast them.
Yeah, that's right. They're fugitives now. Most wanted posters.
Yeah.
They know what. I wonder if they're like real cops who aren't controllers. If they have like a fake story for them about why they got to catch these kids.
Mm.
That
They
could be
might.
fun to explore. We're still walking back the clothes morphing thing a little here.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Now Cassie says, "Oh, we've kind of learned to morph a little more clothes, but not shoes, and it's still not that much." Whatever.
Kind of makes me feel like maybe Ellen Jarrow just added into the Beaver book the fact that they could morph clothes now for no reason without consulting K.A. Applegate. And now everyone's kind of scrambling to figure out what they can and can't do.
She's like, "You made me write this fucking Civil War book, this fucking shitty ass beaver shit. Fuck you. Something of consequence will occur in this book as my last act. They can morph clothes. Fuck you. Goodbye. I'm never bringing you my cookies again."
The Forgotten is still our most discussed book, probably, but we got to get the Beaver book up. I think the Beaver book could be our most referenced book by the end of the series.
That was, by the way, that cookie reference. Non-patrons might not get it. That's for patrons. It's Ellen with the cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
that was on our Patreon, not on our regular. Anyway.
Correct. So, my first thought arriving in the clinic, whatever we're calling it, is
Sure.
This isn't too bad in terms of the sensitivity of the depiction of disabled kids.
Mm-hmm.
It honestly doesn't seem that bad to me. But what is this? You said you had issues. Do they come in here or are they?
No,
later?
not yet.
Okay.
Next section, we'll talk about it.
So at this point, I'm like, this isn't so bad. I sort of wondered if maybe stuttering Joe Biden's in here.
Mm-hmm.
Next to the, for the speech impediment.
You're over here doing we were doing so well, and you were just like, God, I just have a hankering to get canceled.
How is that?
I just have to say something offensive. That's
How is that offensive?
You're just pushing it.
It's well documented that Joe Biden has a stutter. While I was reading this, wondered if maybe he was in here.
You're just pushing it.
This is 24 years ago. He would have been a youth.
No, not 24 years ago. He would have been like fucking 80.
I think it was just a question. The listeners can answer it or not. It's up to you.
Okay.
Jake needs to learn to relax a little bit around these kids. He kind of comes in pretty hot.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole book, Jake is off his game. Like, and I think that's intentional. Like, even before he's in here, there's a bit where they're flying And he's like, "Oh, I think we should do this maneuver." And Marco's like, "I don't know if that's a good idea." And Jake's like, "Shut the fuck up, Marco. I'm the leader. You listen to me." And it's just like, damn, that's what Rachel was doing in book 37. Like this is not Jake. Jake is not himself. And again, I don't think that's a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. It's he's losing his shit. And it's pretty good.
Hmm.
We get I started to wonder here how many more times in before this series ends are we going to have to read a scene of the Animorphs explaining what the Yerks are to someone? We've had
At
a
least
lot
one more,
lately.
maybe two more. I think there's two more.
I mean, in this section, there's two of them.
I mean, okay. If I'm talking in a very general sense, it might be more if that's how
We
specific
literally
we're
get a
getting.
back-to-back thing here.
Yeah.
It's like this is starting to get a little tiresome. I already have to read them explaining it to me at the beginning of every book.
Hmm.
Now they also have to explain it to other characters multiple times.
Hmm.
But fine, I get it. It's
Yeah.
just it's so the more you read the explanation, the more you start to consider how insane it all is,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just gets a little distracting. But it's
Yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to move on too far yet into them
Mhm.
actually recruiting these kids. I just want to talk kind of
Okay.
about
Okay.
these kids. So, I mean, I'll just start off. Here's my ship. I ship Marco with Colette. Or maybe a love triangle with Colette and Kelly. Because,
I
Kelly's got kind of a sharp tongue, and Marco likes that, right?
Yeah, I have to tell you, I couldn't have even told you their names if you asked me. So these characters, other than James, and
Mm,
I guess the one with the speech impediment, none of them made any impression on me.
really? Because Colette has by far the second most representation after James.
What I literally tell me, what does she do? I do not remember. Like, what is
She's
her role?
She's like the more friendly, outgoing one. She's the one who talks to them and like kind of introduces them around, talks to them about the experience of being there. She introduces them to James and talks about it. She's the one who's all like, "Oh yeah, I love extreme sports and that's why I'm in my thing. I love skiing, blah blah blah." There's a little bit of flirtation with Marco there. She's the one where
Hmm.
Marco's like, "Oh no, she's too cute to be a controller. See, she winked at me."
I mean, here's the problem.
Hmm.
You're introducing like 7 new characters
Hmm.
in the middle of a plot-heavy book with
Yeah.
that's dealing with several other characters. We might as well have already got 7 new characters in the form of their parents
Yeah.
actually doing something.
I
So
do.
it's just
Yeah.
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, and that is a thing, right? Like because it is unfortunate because I do think the outlines of who these characters are here, right? In terms of like James, or at least James, Colette, Kelly, and Timmy. We're gonna meet. There's gonna be more, but I don't even think we meet them so much as they are around and named. Um, and yeah, like it would be great to have them fleshed out from those outlines, which I do think are good and I like, but like as you said, not only are we introducing them all kind of at once here in this book that's about all like we're primarily focused on Jake and Cassie and their parents and this situation. And yeah, right, we got 4 more books. We've got a whole plot to wrap up. We've got character arcs for the main Animorphs. We don't have time to really flesh out these characters. We just don't. There just isn't gonna be time, which is too bad because I do like them.
Yeah, I wasn't even that isn't something that really bothered me reading this book. I didn't
Hmm.
feel like, they should have given me more of those characters.
Yeah.
They didn't make an impression on me and I was okay with that.
Hmm.
I did it's again, I don't know how much of this is like stuff we should talk about more towards the end, but I guess now is as good a time as any.
Sure.
But I do think it's a bit awkward because it's hard for me to know, are these kids, is this just a gimmick they're doing? Or should I
Hmm.
actually be getting attached to these new characters? Should I be,
Yeah.
am I really supposed to learn their names and their personalities and now this is the thing? And the reference that I didn't make earlier, that I did make earlier, that I'll make again now, is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I guess I'm going to say sort of spoilers for the premise of season 7 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Uh-huh. Thank you for the
Not,
spoiler
not,
warning.
yeah, not like narrative, but like the premise of what happens in that season. If you don't want to hear that, skip ahead a few minutes. It's fine to make that warning. I don't think you need to titter right now. But, in that show, Buffy's the Vampire Slayer for 6 seasons. And then in season 7, they're like, the specifics don't matter, but it's like, hey, there's other kids who like might be the next Slayer. And so we're going to find all these kids and train them. And basically you have like a house full of new characters. And it's a little bit like, what are we doing? Like in the final stretch, you're just introducing this new batch of people that aren't the people that I've been spending the entire series with. Like, is it now going to be in book 54? Am I going to have to be reading about an important plot character arc wrap up for James that's taking time away from Marco and Cassie or something? Like, I just don't know. But it's also not good if they're just here as token disabled people to be an army because we needed to have a big battle scene or something. Like, you don't want that either. So it's a tough thing to pull off, I think, in only 4 books. And in this book, I think it works well, actually. But I don't know what it's going to be like from now on. That would scare me more if I was reading this as a kid. I think that's the thing I would be most disturbed by reading this is like, is this the book now? It almost feels like a different premise. In an alternate universe, this might have been the premise of the whole series. Like Elfangor could have been like, oh, I'm going to specifically target disabled kids. And like, maybe he should have done that in the first place, or if that was safe. I guess he knew. I don't know. There's Ellimist shit, whatever.
Yeah, he was actually targeting the time matrix, not the kids. But
right,
anyway.
Right, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. All that is to say, it's complicated. I'm very curious and a little worried to see how they continue this thread.
Yeah, and I think that is all fair, right? Like when I'm assessing these kids and how they are used, I am specifically assessing this book because I can't really make more general assessments until we get there, right? Because that's not fair to you.
Whereas I can yell and shout and speculate all I want.
Exactly, yes. But I do think that just like you do already know, it's not a surprise to say, yeah, they don't. However they end up handling it, these kids can't be as fleshed out as the regular Animorphs. They just can't be. We don't have time. Or, like, if they are, it would ruin the regular Animorph story. We don't have time. I think that is not in dispute, right? Like,
if this
one
was
way
a comic
or another.
book series, there would be an 8-issue miniseries just about those kids.
Yeah,
that you
100%.
could read if you wanted to, and then come back.
I would have loved that, honestly, if they had been maybe introduced just a little bit earlier, and they like pop up from time to time in the main books when they need some extra Animorphs. But like maybe they have their own short series, like here's 5 books or here's 4 books, each one of them, or yeah, maybe 5. Each one of them gets their own book. And it's just the little standalone auxiliary Animorph series. And it's just their adventures that weren't important enough for the main book, but like you get to know them. I think I would have loved that. But anyway.
It's literally, I mean, it really reminded me so much of the New Mutants, which I know I haven't read the comics, but I just saw the shitty movie, but it's that idea. It's like kids, they're mutants, of course, it's the X-Men universe, and they're in a hospital, and they kind of have to deal with their powers and shit. It easily could be its own series, just that idea.
Mm-hmm. But as far as just this book on its own, I like James, Timmy, Kelly, Colette, and Pedro, who are the only ones who have literally any kind of characterization whatsoever. I like that outline. I would have liked to see a little bit more development for them in this book and less like, okay, and then we also got a bunch of others, which we're going to get to. But Yeah, like I think this is a perfectly decent starting point as far as the characterization of these people goes. Anyway.
I liked that, I know how I can remember who James is. He's kind of like the leader. James sounds like Jake.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's why he's the only one I remember. Maybe if Kelly was like Cassie, I could make that work, but
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't. So now, before I was talking about the whole, the potentially problematic treatment of disabled people as like heroes and idols and things. There is a nice little passage that I liked when Colette, fan favorite Colette, says, "A disabled kid is like the kitten who becomes a cat. You're a kitten, everybody wants to pet you and play with you. You get a little older, you're just a nuisance." So that is a good little nuanced observation that does go a little deeper than I said before. So maybe I wasn't being, totally fair.
And I do like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's finish up with these kids so we can finish talking about them, because like obviously we want to be done talking about them, right? That's just how we feel about this issue. No. Okay. So all right. They
I
get
want to
James.
say
Yeah. Uh-huh. Go ahead.
All right. I did want to say, when they're explaining to these kids about the Yerks.
Oh, well, I was about to get to that. Yeah, go ahead. Though.
Oh, that's not in the part you just did? We're doing that next?
I just wanted to get to know the kids, but whatever. You can talk about it. Obviously, they're going to explain to the kids about the Yerks.
Fine, then you say your thing. I thought that was this whole section. Just say your next part, though.
It was hard to tell where to split this section, to be honest. It was too much to do all at once, but anyway, whatever.
Go ahead.
You can say it. All right. Whatever. They get James in a private room. They tell him everything. James is like, "Listen, shut up. You guys are assholes coming in here. You're trying to play a prank on us disabled kids. It doesn't look like it's going to work, and they won't be able to convince him, so they morph into animals in front of him. There's like a scene where Colette sees them, whatever. They convince James to help them and to go recruit some of the other kids. This is going to be James's team of auxiliary Animorphs. After there's more discussion where they reveal it again to the other kids, like you said. And after this, James, Colette, Kelly, and Timmy are all given pigeon morphs, and they all fly out to the gardens. When they get there and demorph, James is healed because he became paralyzed when he was in a car accident at the age of 4, but the others are all not healed. They are still disabled. Somehow they managed to get them all into the animal cages and get them all battle morphs. And then over the course of the next few nights, they keep going back and recruiting more kids. By the end of this, they have 17 new kids in all, and James is their leader. Okay.
It's a lot of kids.
That is a lot of kids. 17 kids. And most of that is just kind of like, all right, there's a team. Don't worry about it, right?
We've tripled the amount of Animorphs. More than tripled. Quadrupled.
Yeah. That's correct.
Just about.
Basically, yeah.
More or less. I count Eric as an Animorph.
Yes, tell me about the scene where they're talking. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, it's not really worth saying.
Okay.
No, I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted you to know it's not worth saying. I was just going to say, they're explaining all this stuff about how, the Yerks have enslaved all these people and are controlling their minds and are luring children. Visser 3 is the leader of this whole movement. He's been putting people in cages, murdering people at his every whim, having them devoured alive by Taxons, slashed to bits by Hork-Bajirs. I mean, this Visser 3 guy, he's a real jerk.
I do. It was fun knowing where that was going long before you got there.
Look, they call him, it wasn't from nowhere. He says that he calls Visser 3 a jerk in this section, and I just thought it was pretty funny to be like, he's a jerk.
This guy's a real jerk. Yeah.
Anyway, that was all that was. Now these kids. Let's talk more about these kids now that they have morphing power.
Yeah.
I did think like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of we touched on this last book with Lauren too,
Mm-hmm.
but this introduces a lot of ideas that are heavy ideas.
Yeah.
Some of these kids, and maybe I don't know, maybe this is now maybe I'm gonna get canceled again for even suggesting this, but it's possible some kids might morph into a bird who like can't walk or see, and they might just be a Tobias and say, why would I want to leave this body? Maybe I'm just going to stay in this morph.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that gets explored. It doesn't really in this book. It
Yeah,
kind of did in last book, actually, when Lauren actually says she doesn't want to morph back because she'll be blind again.
Yeah, it does. That's more of a thing in the last book than it is in this one, for sure. In this one, we're more exploring the idea that like some of these kids, James in particular, are potentially going to be able-bodied again after they morph the first time.
Yeah, and now and for the ones who aren't,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm also thinking, okay, sure, maybe it has to be post-war, ideally, but it's almost inhumane if you don't like what you really should do. These kids should be allowed to find some other human and acquire them,
Or Frolus maneuver if they want to.
Yeah, sure, but like
Can
that's
you Frolus maneuver yourself? And
If
be
the
like, I'm
Ellimist
going to
lets
use
you.
my own DNA for most of it, but then use your DNA to be able to walk.
These are all great questions to explore. Maybe you got to be a real Estrine or something to do that, but yeah, like that's a whole thing. Like, is this just does the morphing cube revolutionize healthcare? I think we did just say this last episode too, but they don't really talk about this in this book, but
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't help thinking about it. Like, but then who do you like? I thought of there's an idea here. If this was a larger series that covered more stuff and was, I mean, it's already pretty fucking weird sci-fi shit, but maybe there would be, in a world where morphing technology is commonplace, maybe you would just have like, there's just like 500 people who just look like this one guy. Because he's the guy who donated his likeness for anyone who broke their legs or something after they were born, and now they get to be him because otherwise they can't live a normal life or whatever.
This is a really good like Twilight Zone or Black Mirror or something.
Yeah, totally. Or some kind of weird thing like that. Yeah. Would be fascinating to see play out. But
yeah. Now this is the part that I actually do kind of have a bit of a problem with, is the healing thing. So last time, and I think I brought this up with Myrtle too, but last time I talked about, like, I asked the question, is it kind of problematic in terms of representation to have Lauren, like, you know, we introduced this blind character and now she's just not blind anymore. She's healed. And, you know, the honest answer is I don't think it's really a problem, right? Because for her, you know, like I said, whatever, it's not actually a problem. It's just a representation thing. And let's be real, she's the adult, the parent. She's not, when you're a kid reading this, you want to identify with the kids, not the adults. The idea that some of these kids get healed is, I think, a really cool and interesting and good one. It functions not just as like a good extension of what we already know about morphing, and an interesting narrative wrinkle in that if you are, you know, made able-bodied by this and you have to keep your cover, now you have to pretend to keep being disabled. That is an interesting wrinkle. That is like a strange thing to have to contend with in the story that I think is worth thinking about. And it is also, and maybe this is problematic, but I also think that makes for an interesting kind of like escapist fantasy if you are a disabled kid. Like if you're a regular kid, and I shouldn't say regular, that's really bad. But if you were an able-bodied kid and you're saying, if you're an able-bodied kid and you're saying, yeah, I want to turn into a hawk, right? I can imagine a kid who's wheelchair-bound reading this and saying like, oh, you know, if I could morph, maybe I wouldn't be wheelchair bound. That's an interesting story. I think all of that is good to have. What I don't like, especially from a representation standpoint, is that it is specifically James who gets healed, right? Most of them should not be made able-bodied, and very specifically, I think to me, it feels important from a representation standpoint that the leader, the character we're going to get the most exploration of, the character who's going to be like kind of the symbol of this larger group. We don't have time to explore 17 characters. We're going to be looking at James calling his people to action. That character, if he's going to be representative of your auxiliary Animorphs who are disabled, that character should be disabled. I don't like the imagery of, a kid who's wheelchair bound reading this and being like, oh, cool, I can see myself in this story, but not as the leader. The leader has to be able to walk. Like, to me, that really kind of rubs me the wrong way. And in this section, they even there's two other characters. There's two other names of people who get healed. What is it? Erica and somebody else. I don't know. They don't matter. But they end up being the group leaders, right? These 17 kids are split into 3 groups, and they're all led by people who became able-bodied again. I don't like that. I really don't like that. I would 100% have gone back and said, like, some of these kids should become able-bodied again. That's a good and interesting thing, but not the leaders, right? Not the focal point. I don't know.
I think that's very fair. I think you're right. I think it's not just that he's the leader, but also I don't remember exactly what the physical description they give of him, but I mean, I'm picturing him as like, the handsome young white boy, right?
He's definitely supposed to be the handsome young white boy, right?
Yeah,
the All-American. He's Jake, but
yes, exactly. Yeah. He's Jake Light. He's a guy who, if only, he's the one who's almost like passing, quote unquote, like it's not really the right term to use here, but like if he wasn't in a wheelchair, it's like, oh boy, then he'd just be such a nice, handsome young man, as opposed to like, oh, not that one though. To be clear, I'm saying this not from my own perspective, but from the perspective of what people who aren't nice people might think.
The Yerks are jerks. Visser 1's a jerk. That's why he doesn't.
Yeah, right. It feels. Yeah, I agree. It feels. Yeah, it's diminishing towards the other ones. It's like it's this guy. He's the good looking one, the man, the strapping young lad. Give him his walking back.
Yeah, why can't the handsome, strapping young lad that, like, where you're like, yeah, I want to be like James, he's so cool and handsome and take charge and awesome. Why can't he stay in his wheelchair,
Yeah. I mean, for some of them, it kind of works. I like, again, is it Timmy with the speech impediment?
Yeah, I love that Timmy loves thought speech. That's great. And they say that he says he has an encyclopedic knowledge of musical theater.
Yes, that's great.
You can imagine him
really
singing
good.
Show tunes all day and thought speak and annoying the hell out of everyone.
It is somewhat unfortunate that in the year 2001, around the height of South Park's popularity, that they named this kid Timmy.
I didn't even consider that. Yes, that is unfortunate.
But that's fine. But yeah, like, so that one is like, I hate to say I'm glad he doesn't get healed, but like that is a more interesting character choice that he has to deal with that difference going back and forth. I don't know. I can't. I'm like, when do I stop before I say something that's extremely offensive?
I've been wondering, is it offensive to use the word healed for this? Like, I've been going back and forth between saying healed and saying like made able-bodied, because it's not. But like, hopefully, it's sort of understood what's meant here.
Can I cancel myself again? Because I was about to make a comparison to Bruce Banner and the Hulk. That's probably bad, right?
I don't even know where you're going with that, but
I don't know. Just that it's like
that's how unproblematic I am. I don't even.
The Hulk is like inarticulate, and Bruce Banner's like a science genius, and it's kind of like, you have to deal with those two. Yeah, it's problematic. I shouldn't have said it. I know.
I mean, I do think Listen, I like the idea of this character being given access to thought speech, especially because, like, we are in 2000 or 2001. Like, nowadays, if you have, I think he has cerebral palsy, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
Timmy
that's right.
in the book. But if you physically can't speak, anybody can just have access to a tablet, and you can use text to speech things, and there are all kinds of different ways to, like, actually articulate yourself. But back in that day, it's like, okay, if you're Stephen Hawking, you get that. And if you're
Hmm.
just a random kid in a hospital, no, you're just stuck, right? You're
Yeah.
stuck having all these things you want to say and being unable to say them. And I can imagine this character being upset at that fact. Um, and so I think that that's an interesting, fun thing to do with him.
Yeah. I don't know that I would call it fun because I don't find that kind of thing fun. Personally, it's sad to me.
Oh, not
Tragic,
me.
even.
I think it's fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Just the difference between us. That's all.
Uh, uh,
All right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So yeah, I agree with your take. I didn't think about that as I read it,
yeah. Oh, we
but
also
it's
do
not
find
wrong.
out on that note here that Colette has been lying. She wasn't injured in a skiing accident and doesn't love extreme sports.
Oh
So Colette is
yeah.
also not healed in this section.
Yeah. Which is sort of interesting, but it's just like I don't know why is that in there? Do we don't have time to really think about
Mhm.
that or explore it, or like that character isn't really a character. Well, to you she
Yeah.
is.
I,
But
well, listen, again, like I said, I think that all these characters have outlines, right?
yeah.
Like, I think that really, like, contributes to Colette having an outline as a character.
It's just
And
yeah, go on,
yeah,
go
I
on.
mean, the question, as you were saying, is going forward into the other books, do we fill these
Yeah.
characters out or do they become tokens, right?
And I think that's connects to maybe what my real issue, which maybe I alluded to earlier, but I don't know if I really spelled it out or thought of it in my head. But I think the fear is that this is a jumping the shark moment, which I've said before. I think the series is immune to those because there's been 20 of them. But it does feel like, usually on a sitcom, what happens when ratings start to get low? We introduce a new character to
Hmm.
the mix. Like that's how or we've just run out of shit to do. Here comes Poochie. Right? And it's
Right,
like,
right.
is this Poochie? Is this like, do I really have to like that's when I read that little character moment. I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's better
Hmm.
than she just has no character.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking, why do I care about that? Does it matter to me that she lied about skiing? I don't know. Who cares? That's not what I'm here for right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose there is a little bit of a difference between, like, you're reading this once as an adult and just being through it, and as opposed to, like, as a kid, oh, I get this book. It takes me a little longer to read it because I'm a kid, so I'm dwelling on the sections a little bit longer, and I'm rereading this book before the next one comes out, of course, because I'm back into the series at this point. So, like, maybe part of the reason why I'm like, yeah, these characters is because as a kid, I was like, yeah, these characters. I'm not thinking, is the series jumping the shark? I'm not thinking, are we going to see them fleshed out more? I'm not thinking, oh, these aren't really fully developed characters. I'm just like, yeah, Colette, she's the one who, she tells stories about, like, about being an outdoorsy person. She's outgoing and adventurous and an interesting storyteller, and maybe she's a little flirty with Marco, and you know what I mean. And these criticisms, which are valid criticisms, aren't occurring to me as a kid, and there's still some semblance of that left in my head.
Yeah, I think there's a thing that happens with a lot of properties, I find, where the difference in perception of new ideas when they're new versus there's a certain point when
Hmm.
they kind of just cross over into just being part of the established framework of the thing.
Hmm.
Like a lot of movie series, I feel like uh, I don't know. I guess Star Wars is as good an example as any. It's like, when the idea of I mean, midi-chlorians is a bad example. What's one that maybe people actually kind of like? I don't know, but the idea of oh god, I don't know. What's something in clones like the clone army in Attack of the
Hmm.
Clones?
Hmm.
like when that first came out, and me still, because I remember when it first came out, I'm like, I don't know, I don't really like clones. I think they're kind of stupid.
Hmm.
I don't really like them as characters, whatever. But now, like, there's the cartoons, you have the clones, and video games have the clones, and there are other kids who grew up, and when they first watched Star Wars, the clones weren't new. They started watching Star Wars after the prequels came out. So it's like, oh, that's just part of Star Wars is clones. So to them, it's not like a new thing. So there, I don't know what the fuck I'm even trying to say anymore. But there's a there's a line where it's like this thing stops feeling new and different, and you're just like, you accept it because this has just always been there in your mind.
Hmm.
You're not coming. I mean, I guess that's not true because you also did read this when it was new, but you've had
Yeah.
much longer to reckon with it.
Yeah, and also again, like when you're a kid, you are less aware of that. You just accept this shit. Like my
Right.
first introduction to these characters was as a kid, and so I'm like, oh, okay, here they are, and let's see if they do stuff
Yes.
with them. And if they don't do stuff with them, that's going to feel like a failure of the later books, rather than a failure of this book to me. Whereas with you, you're going to be like, I already am looking at this from a more mature perspective of like, like, are they going to do something? Whether or not I like this depends on what they do, so I don't like it yet. And I'm holding
Yes.
some of that kid thing.
Yeah, definitely as a kid, I'm sure there's many examples of things that I have enjoyed that it's you're not thinking you're not looking at it critically.
Hmm.
You're just like you're not asking why are those characters here? You're just going, "Oh, those characters are here now."
Hmm.
I'll like them cuz that's what I like. I like this. They're here.
Right,
That's a
right.
thing now.
And of
Cool,
course,
let's go.
I love Toby, and I love Jaggle, and it's not like they get a ton of characterization, right? I love
I'm
Aldrea.
still well, we're going to have to circle back to Toby at the end of the series, I think.
Yeah, we are done with Jaggle. There's no more Jaggle.
That's a shame. All right. Anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts there. I feel like we should. There's more stuff that happens in this book, but most of it is action. And I feel like I have said most of my big idea thoughts for this book. But
Yeah, that is most of it. I mean, the only around this section we get, and I think we mostly discussed what we needed to about it, but we also get the conversation with Cassie and her dad, where her dad's
mm,
like, "Tell me you're not actually doing this, Cassie. What is wrong with you?" And she has to once again be all like, "Fuck off, dad. This is what needs to be done," and then feel shitty about saying it. And once again, the language he uses makes it a little bit iffy about whether he thinks it's bad because the kids are disabled as opposed to just kids. I, is there anything new there that needs to be talked about for you?
no, I think I already covered it with my Cassie stuff before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, all right. So, they are about to move on to like another recruitment place, which is they've gotten everybody out of this clinic that they're going to get. So they're going to move on to this school for the blind. They head over to the school for the blind, and they are about to introduce themselves to the kids when they realize that it's a trap. They're being watched, and Tom and some Hork-Bajir all show up. Tom takes the Escafil device from them, and takes the Animorphs captive. He's like, Jake, I'll kill Jake's parents if you don't come quietly. Except for Cassie, because Cassie is still in Flymorph at this point. So Tom leaves with the Escafil device and the Animorphs, and Cassie leaves to go get James to rescue them. So James and she shows up. James and his team all assemble, and they head out to where the Animorphs are being held, as Visser One is like also on his way in a limo. Cassie, when they get there, Cassie's kind of like having second thoughts. She's like, "Oh shit, they're all gonna get killed." But James is like, "No way, we're doing this," and they all go battle morphs. Um, I do have one thing to say about this. I
Okay.
don't have a lot to say about this, but I do have one thing to say about this. How did this trap happen?
I did. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like the immediate thought is, oh shit, the Yerks are watching the school for the blind to see if the Animorphs go recruit kids. There's only
Yeah.
one reason they'd be doing that, and that's because they got caught. They got James and his people, and they already know. But no, they didn't. James and his people are fine. They don't know about them. So why, how, what? What's going
Yeah,
on?
you're correct. My note was how the fuck they know to watch a school for the blind.
Yeah.
It is completely. You're right. The only answer is that they know what they're doing, but there
Yeah.
is literally no way for them to know what they're doing.
Yeah. Or I mean, there are ways, but if they did know, then the auxiliary animorphs would all be fucked, and they're not, so they must not know.
I guess you have to reason. I don't know. They saw one of them and followed them or something, but they're
Yeah.
there before they get there,
Yeah.
right? Or are they?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Unless I don't remember them sending out a scout ahead of time. I thought they just like found it on a map and said we're going there. Maybe they did. I don't know. It does here. This is what I was saying earlier when I was like, boy, what if you took this random costume shop bike chase scene bullshit and you dedicated a couple chapters to explaining why there's a trap? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
nice?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's not good. It's not a good.
Yeah.
It really feels like something's missing there.
Yeah.
We do get that Tom confrontation moment here
Yes, we do.
that we didn't get last book, where we get to hear Tom. We get that satisfaction of Tom saying, "I can't believe it was my own brother in my house."
Hmm.
That's not. It's not really that great though, is it? It's
Yeah.
fine.
It might have been better if it were,
The moment's
you know,
passed.
right. Like we already had to deal with the parents and the way they're living. We already had to introduce the new Animorphs. We don't have time for a Tom Jake confrontation, and also it's Cassie's book, so yeah, no, it's not great.
You do have to wonder. Tom says like Visser almost starved me to death. Why? Why the hell would he not just kill him?
Yeah,
He should be so pissed at this guy.
I mean, we said this. I definitely said this last book. Tobias said to Jake, Visser one won't kill Tom or your parents because like he won't kill Tom because he needs Tom. Like now that he knows that you're an Animorph, he needs Tom more than ever. And it's like that is logical and makes sense. Visser 1 is not logical and does not make sense. I don't buy that he's not killing Tom the instant he finds out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else to say here? I mean, Cassie's got like a proud feeling. She's kind of feeling like their big sister or their mom as she's watching the auxiliary animorphs morph for the first, like to head out for the first time. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I mean the School of the Blind, I guess we didn't really talk about, but it's a little.
Yeah, there's like not. Yeah.
I don't know. It's like this little girl. I'm getting Cindy Lou Who vibes from her waking up and be like, "What's going on?"
Yeah. There. Yeah.
This is where it starts to now feel a little more. I don't know. Patronizing, maybe. It's just kind of like. Well, it also seems like these kids read as younger to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what how old are they? Or what are we doing? It's strange. It just feels strange that this is what this has become now.
Yeah.
That the Animorphs just hit up schools for the blind. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. No. I mean, this whole section doesn't like just cut it right.
Well, you
like,
gotta have a reason for the confrontation, but
yeah, and you got to have a reason for them to have the blue box with them, right? So like, yeah, get a thing, whatever. You get the idea, you know what I mean? But like, set up some other reason for it. Just cut the whole school for the blind thing. Fuck that. Whatever.
it feels very. I mean, I'm very ignorant. Is that even a thing that still is out there? Are there schools for the blind? It feels like a thing from like the 1800s to me. Like,
yeah,
am I just dumb? I don't know. Maybe that is. It could very well be a thing that
yeah,
we're just not aware of because I'm not in that world. But
yeah,
whatever. Whatever. Schools for the blind.
right.
Anyway.
There's thunder outside, and I saw my lights flicker. I hope my power doesn't go out before we finish.
Yeah,
That would be bad.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll save it. It'll be fine. Somebody turns into a walrus here.
Kelly turns into a walrus by mistake. And that's not even her battle morph. Why did they give her a walrus?
They actually say this is pre-battle morphs.
Yeah.
James says get in transit morphs.
Right.
Yes, but yes, why the fuck did they get a walrus?
Yeah, like they gave her a pigeon so she could fly. You know, they should have been giving them bugs. I don't know if they did. Her battle morph is a bull. That's reasonable. They gave her a bull to fight with. And then also at some point they were like, you know what? While we're here, you should pick up a walrus.
That
It's
must
probably
have
not a
been
bad
her
idea.
being like, I just love walruses. Let me go check them out.
All right, there you go. That adds a little bit more character to Kelly. She's a
But
walrus fan.
It's still funny. Well,
Yeah.
someone else is a hedgehog. I mean, that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah. I mean, that one, listen, maybe there's like a clinic pet, and since they all have morphing powers, they're like, fuck it, I'm going to morph the hedgehog. I like hedgehogs.
Yeah, sure.
We don't know what they're doing on the in-between days.
Finally, my OC Sonic character can be real.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, battle morph wise, one interesting thing: James is a lion.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a fun detail.
Yeah.
Because of David.
Because of David, and they point that out. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get through this fight real quick, and then we'll get to the important thing that happens at the end.
Yeah.
All right, so like they're going in. I'll just list them off. James is a lion. Colette's a crocodile. Kelly's a bull. Timmy's a bobcat, which is a really shitty battle morph. I don't know why they did that. I could probably beat a bobcat, though I'd probably have to be hospitalized after it. Anyway, the fucking Hork-Bajir, no way. Anyway, so Cassie and all 17 of the new Animorphs, they bust in the door and a fight breaks out, right? Like James gets the Escafil device away from Tom. The regular, normal, everyday, we've seen them before. These are your Animorphs, right? The main 6, whatever. They all go battle morphs too. Fighting breaks out, right? Visser 1 shows up, more fighting. There's some banter between Jake and Axe and Visser 1. Tom shoots Kelly with a Dracon beam, and she's like bleeding out and dying. Marco rescues her. He has to carry her out in his arms. This is a good, if you want that love triangle. Marco to the rescue. Visser 1 turns into a giant squid-like creature with black scales, red eyes, and 20 whip-like tentacles. You know, classic Visser 1. There's chaos. Just when it looks like Visser 1 is going to get Jake, some random Hork-Bajir, who it turns out is a rebel Yerk, like attacks Visser 1 and gives them a window to escape, and they flee and get out. Anything to discuss about this before we move on?
I got a few things.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. But my first thought was, I thought all of this entire scene would make a lot more sense to me if it was intercut with scenes of freed slaves fighting in the Civil War.
You're right.
You know, just I couldn't quite grasp the idea of a marginalized group being recruited to fight in a battle. That would have really helped me internalize it and process that.
You're right. Hey, I can't argue with that.
Okay, first thought. This is honestly a pretty badass scene, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have not had other than, I guess, maybe like Hork-Bajir Chronicles, we haven't really had a battle sequence on this scale before. Because it's always just the 6 kids.
Yeah.
And now you have 23 kids. That's a lot of animals fighting. This is some Helm's Deep shit up in here.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
They do mention that with Visser 1 too, where you know, they're like, oh shit, like for the first time this feels like a fair fight, and he's like, seems like there might be more of you now.
Yeah.
I do like when Jake's like, no, there's always been this many of us. That was pretty good.
Yeah. He's fully aware of their humanity now, so this is also the first time we really see that engagement. You know, which is fine. They also do, to me, this is kind of I guess you'd call it a trope, for lack of a better word, that sometimes irks me a little bit, which is when a character is extremely competent and gets out of every scrape. Usually, this happens a lot in superhero comics. Like they're usually fighting on their own, but then when they team up with somebody, that's when like, oh, they would have died if the other guy wasn't there to then come in and knock the bad guy out of the way just before they were about to get him in the face with a knife.
Mhm.
And it's like, how come it's only when there is someone to help you that you actually get into trouble? And that's kind of what it feels like here is like the Animorphs have fought all these fights and they pretty much always win, or at least they get out relatively unscathed physically. Mentally is another story. But now is the time when like they're definitely going to die. A good thing he just got 17 new recruits. It's like, you know, maybe Visser 3 should have used this squid morph a long time ago because it seems incredibly effective compared to all this other shit.
Yeah,
but you know,
or just like they would have found their way out anyway, but that's the way they did this time, and they're like, good thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I hear
I
what
guess
you're
so.
saying for sure.
I mean, you got to up the stakes, like if you have, but it's just, I guess it would be nice if maybe the Yeerks also had, like, there's not a reason for them to be doing better than ever. They just know they're humans, but.
Yeah, I mean, there is some reason why the Animorphs shouldn't do as much better as you might think, which is that of these 17 new kids, 0 of them have any combat experience. So
That's true.
You might expect that this doesn't actually help the Animorphs as much as you might think it would, and you might expect some serious trauma for these kids. I do wish we'd seen a little. I like that Kelly almost dies and is freaking out. I like when that kind of trauma happens, especially for like, you know, we saw David get fucked up just by like the threat of death, and now we're seeing Kelly lying there bleeding out and being like, shit, if I demorph, they'll kill me. What am I gonna do? I'm panicking. It would have been nice to see that with a couple more of these kids too, or to see a little more of the aftermath of that. We don't really see that here.
I was wondering if one of these kids was going to die. I mean, it sure seems like, I guess it's a little too dark, but it kind of seems like they should.
There sure are like over a dozen unnamed kids here, because I don't think Pedro's one of them. So there's, well, okay, they named Liam and Julio and Erica and whatever that other person's, but we don't know them, right? Who cares? So
yeah,
most of these kids are unnamed. They could just kill one.
Yeah, I mean, you have this many untested kids against blue band horks and giant tentacles. It seems pretty likely one would get whacked.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. Because if there's one new person with 6 experienced people, if the new person gets fucked up, right, there's an ability to retreat and protect them. But if you know, 3/4 of your team, as you said, are totally new, like if somebody's fucked, like there's too much chaos. You're not.
Yeah,
it's easy to imagine somebody could have and maybe should have died here.
It's kind of letting the Animorphs off the hook a little. Like they should probably. I mean, Cassie feels bad about it, but they're basically having their cake and eating it too. Like they're having they're letting them have the moral dilemma of, is this okay to let kids do this without actually giving them the consequences of it.
Well, last time they got a little shit like David, and this time they got the cool person. They got James, who's kind of like Jake. So this time it's going to work out.
Yeah. You know what? I'll give Colette a little credit. She is an alligator, and she says, "Who wants to wrestle this big green baby?" I thought that was cool.
Is this like Schnappy,
what?
The baby crocodile Schnappy?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
From the like mid-aughts German meme song. It was like the baby shark of its era.
Of course. Oh, we all remember the German baby shark of the mid-aughts.
Schnappy, schnappy, schnapp. That one.
You are a freak. What is wrong with you? No one knows what that is. What the fuck are you talking about? This sounds like a Nick Kroll character. This is not a real fucking thing that someone knows about. You're nuts.
Yeah. All right.
Has Visser 1 always referred to them as rebel scum, or is that new?
I think that's new because he can't say Andalite bandits anymore. What's he going to call them?
Yeah. So that did kind of... But also, they're not... I guess they're rebels. Yeah. I don't know. Are you rebels against a? Because the
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeerks aren't actually the government. Like they're not the prevailing power. Whatever. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
whatever. All right, you had a lot more to say about that section than I
I
thought. I
guess
thought
I
we were just
did.
gonna breeze through that section and finish up, but
Yeah. Well, we thought wrong.
we thought wrong. All right,
It was
well,
cool. I mean, I liked it. I thought it delivered on the promise of a large group of Animorphs in a fight
okay.
sequence.
Yeah, I mean, I liked seeing it. I did think that. I mean, for me, it just felt like, oh, we got a big fight sequence, and I would have liked to see maybe like a thing where the characters that we know are fleshed out a little bit more through the fight somehow. But you know, it is Animorph, so what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Anyway, ready to finish this up because the ending of this book's a big deal.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Hurry up.
Okay, so they're in the process of retreating, right? They're all retreating, and that is when Jake and Cassie see Tom. And Tom has somehow gotten his hands on the Escafil device, the blue box, the morphing cube. Tom kind of realizes this is like my shot, right? Like this is my shot to get power. So rather than handing it over to Visser 1, he runs off with it on his own. And Jake runs after him as a tiger, and Cassie follows. Tom injures Jake with a Dracon beam, but Jake is still coming after him, and Cassie is like, Jake is going to kill Tom. That's like right now, right here. And she's like, if this happens, there's no coming back, right? Like Jake is fucked forever if this happens. So she has like this moment of clarity and she lunges at Jake and she bites his back leg and holds him in place to keep him from pouncing. Jake kind of swipes at her and roars at her, and Tom runs off with the morphing cube. They all make it back safe. James and his people they're still in. He's a good leader. He's kept them, from defecting or whatever. The other Animorphs back at the Hork-Bajir Valley, they do not know what happened with Tom. They know that Tom got away, and they know that things are somehow very wrong between Jake and Cassie, but they don't know that Cassie let Tom get away. And we end with a scene where the two of them are arguing. Jake is like, how could you do it, Cassie? How could you stop me? How could you let it? You could have gone and taken him down. And Cassie does not have an answer for him, but somehow feels that this was right. Okay, this is the end of the book. Now, we had a huge status quo change we added all of these new Animorphs. We have another huge status quo change now. Two, in fact. One being that now, the bad guys can morph. Tom has the Escafil device. Going forward, the Yeerks, the controllers, are going to be able to morph. This is huge.
This is interesting because I don't know that because it kind of seems like Tom, doesn't he say something that it sounds like he's going to go against Visser 1 or something? Isn't he not, like he's on the run?
It's not clear exactly, but it is clear that he is trying to get like power within the Yeerk organization by being the guy who has the morphing cube, or at least got it.
Right. I mean, I did wonder. I mean, he's been holding this thing for a long time. Like he has never throughout this entire sequence, he doesn't actually try to use it. It seems a bit strange.
Well, going forward, Tom is going to be able to morph. And some other controllers are going to be able to morph.
Okay. Yeah. See, for some reason, I had the impression that he was kind of on his own now. But I don't remember why. Well,
we'll talk about because this does change Tom's dynamics within the Yeerk situation for sure, 100% going forward. That also changes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was also like, because I guess he's just going to go back, but cause I wasn't sure, like, does he have a Kandrona? Like, what's he doing? But I guess he's.
I mean, we'll talk. We'll see what exactly he does. But listen, I mean, the fact that he has the morphing cube and they don't, like, this is a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
Or do you not think it's a huge deal? It sounds like you don't actually think this is a huge deal.
No, I guess it is a huge deal. I guess I just didn't really I just haven't really processed it because it's just the book ends and I'm just kind of like, oh, that's crazy. I wonder what's going to happen next. But you're right. I mean, you're right.
I mean, as a kid, this is blowing your mind, right? As a kid, you're like, oh, fuck, they can morph now, right? Like, and you don't know until next month. I don't know. As a kid, this was blowing my mind.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think I'm just stupid. I just didn't really. I just was like, oh man, he's got the cube. But I just stopped thinking about the implications of it. You know how we've been over this, that my own brain protects me from spoilers of even my own speculation.
I mean, here's yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, here's another status quo change. In addition to having all the tension between Jake and Cassie, this book, we now have a major point of tension between Jake and Cassie. Like, rather than resolving at the end, we end on them being even more, like, having this rift driven between them.
Yeah, I actually thought Cassie was going to pull a Jake? Cassie? Rachel? I guess maybe it's Rachel. That's who did it. I can't remember. When she pushes Marco's mom off a cliff. Right? I thought Cassie was going to kill Tom so Jake didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that maybe that would have been an even better crazy thing for her character.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not quite that extreme.
I mean, in some ways it's not, but like that's kind of the thing, is that Jake is over here like, why didn't you do that? Like, in some ways this is more of a betrayal. Like, she didn't like betray her own ideals by killing Tom. In fact, she kind of like lives up to her own ideals by not killing Tom. And the consequences of that are that now the bad guys can potentially morph, right? Like, this is book 19, Cassie, where all the Animorphs are like, what the fuck are you doing?
True. That's true. It's all the family stuff makes it very messy too.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's his brother. I mean, she's looking out for Jake. She's doing what she thinks is in his best interests. She doesn't want him to get any more fucked up than he already is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she sacrifices her own standing in the group to make that choice. Yeah, it's heavy.
It's funny to me because it really sounds like you just did not consider this at all. Like, the other parts of this book where you're like, yeah, I have opinions, and here you're like, oh, interesting.
I think it's just because it just, to me, is like, it's just the tease. Like, I'm just not, I just don't know. I don't have as many thoughts because I'm just like, I'll see how that goes in the next book.
You close the book and then your brain's off. Well,
yes.
But like, that's you see the James and his people in the middle of the book, and you go, oh, I don't know if I like this. It depends on what happens in later books. You're thinking about other books. Yeah, now we're here, and you're like, I'm done thinking about that.
Because that was in the middle of the book. I had to think about it. I had to write down notes. The end of the book, I'm done.
You have to write notes up to the last page. You can't just quit because there's 2 pages.
This is what I wrote. I wrote, Tom is now running loose with a morphing cube. That's what I wrote. I said, what's Tom going to do? But here's the other thing. I had a lot more critical thoughts about those kids because I was like worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm not I think this is a good development. So I'm just sort of, my brain just goes into autopilot. Like, I'm on this ride. I'm not right now analyzing it. I'm just like, all right, let's see. Let's do it. Cause I mean, you're right. Look, you're correct. There's a lot. This is a big deal, but I don't know. Like, for whatever reason, I'm just well, it hasn't happened yet. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
You've strapped yourself in. You're ready to go over the edge. You're not looking at the coaster like, oh, I think this one's kind of shitty. Maybe I want to get in line on a different one. You're already in the cart.
That's right. I'm in the cart. I mean, I also wrote down, I like that Cassie has not forgotten the face of her father. Because she thinks she remembers her dad's face in this scene.
Yeah, right. No, she does. You're right. Jake maybe has forgotten the face of his father.
I think he has. Of Steve?
Steve, yeah, that's his name.
Steve.
Yeah, I mean, look, this scene. There have been a lot of things, obviously not intentionally building to this scene, because there's no way that Kay Applegate had any idea what she was doing. But like all the way back in like book 6, Jake was having dreams about being a tiger and stalking Tom through the dark woods, and like just as he kills Tom, he becomes him. Or whatever. Or like just as he's about to kill Tom, he switches places and the tiger's gonna kill him. So like this specific scene has been like referred to in Jake's dreams like throughout the series. Like this sort of thing, it there was like what's the word? It was foreshadowed, just not in, again, there's no way it was intentional, right?
But I mean, thematically, it's been
Thematically, yes.
Some kind of a confrontation between them has been teased. Like they didn't know what that was, but you knew eventually it had to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the other
thing.
But
I do like that they used the visuals from that specifically for this bit.
Yeah, which is I don't think I picked up on that because it's been a while since they really did that.
Yeah, and it wasn't that.
I'm also just tired. This is what happens when you drop a big plot revelation after 2.5 hours of podcasting. Is I'm not as my energy's just not as high.
Right.
That's maybe the main issue.
All right.
But yeah, no, it's a big deal. Tom is a big deal, and we've been waiting for Tom to be a bigger deal. So I'm glad that they are positioning him now as a figure of importance beyond just Jake's brother, because after the last book, it kind of seemed like, well, that's done, so he doesn't matter anymore, really. So that's something that's good.
Yeah, no, and yeah, it's like you're saying, it's not even just that he's brought back. Like they have positioned him as an important like thing because he's the guy who got the anyway. Whatever, we'll see going forward what they do with all of that, with the morphing cube thing, with the Tom thing, with the new Animorphs, with Jake and Cassie, all that stuff. We'll see it. We'll see what they do and if it works or if it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, don't you just if you're a controller, or if you're just the Yerks and you now have a morphing cube, wouldn't you just, because you don't have access to the fourth moon of Egil 7.
Yeah.
You have what's on Earth.
Yeah.
Isn't your best bet as a morph as a controller on Earth just a Hork-Bajir? I mean, not right?
Necessarily. Listen, there is. We'll get into it because I think you're going to be able to make that complaint at certain points going forward. But there is also the real issue of like, I mean, back during the David arc, they would just be doing random shit and they'd be like, "Do you think David is on me as a flea right now?"
That's
shit.
True.
I understand why Visser 3 hates us, right? So there is some level of like, do you think there's just a cloud of flies here that are going to turn into controllers and then Hork-Bajir and start killing us?
Yes, the surveillance aspect and you can be sneakier, but we also know that that's not Visser 1-3's style. So,
right. But maybe it's Tom's. I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe it's Granny controllers.
Maybe it's Jim the teacher controller.
Yeah, Chapman, Taylor. There's a lot of options.
There's a lot of them. All right. There's a lot to look forward to here. 4 books left.
Yeah, we're almost done.
I don't think that this book was, as we laid out in our discussion, there's some flaws. It's not as close to a home run as last week's book was, but it's still pretty good. I still think this is a pretty good book.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Yeah, like there are some construction issues. There are some ways in which it doesn't quite hit. There are some. I like. I can see the idea of jumping the shark or whatever I like what they're doing with the auxiliary Animorphs in this particular book, as far as it goes. And, I'm generally happy with this book.
Yeah, all my concerns with them are concerns for the future, not for what happens here.
Right, exactly. We're doing it book by book. I can't, there's no point in trying to talk any further than this book about what I like or don't like.
It makes perfect sense. If I was an Animorph and you're in this situation, it's like, yeah, you got to recruit new people. I get it.
Well, now that we've talked about that book, and I've gotten myself canceled like 3 times for accidentally using ableist language or expressing ableist ideas, you know, and I think maybe you did too, but I certainly
I don't think
did.
I did.
Maybe do you want to do pop culture references?
Yeah, there aren't that many.
Okay.
She compares Marco to a character on a rerun of the Andy Griffith Show on Nick at Night. So at least we're calling out specifically Nick at Night now.
Yeah, they do know it exists.
Yeah. I know I like to count these. They reference the FBI and the CIA. They also reference Jake's Achilles heel. Reference to Greek mythology, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Cassie mentions Braveheart, The Patriot, and Gladiator. Gladiator 2 in theaters later this year. Where's Braveheart 2? Come on, Mel Gibson. It's time.
Yeah. They also do One for All and All for One there, so that's kind of like referencing the Three Musketeers, right?
You know what? You're right.
All right.
You're right. They say it's a mission that sounds like a Star Trek plot. This one I like. They say someone needs to pull a Lance Armstrong. Means something very different now than it did then.
You're right.
Very different connotations there. They reference the 3 Starbucks, the massive Barnes & Noble, and the 4 McDonald's in the area. That's a little bit of a haha, isn't it funny how there's so many of these things?
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism, I guess. Jake reaches for a Spider-Man mask, hyphen.
Yep.
Hyphen. There's an Olympics t-shirt and sweats with a Nike logo. Somebody in the clinic says, I've seen David Copperfield in New York, Siegfried and Roy in Las Vegas, and Penn and Teller in Los Angeles.
I think that's Kelly.
They're a magic buff. Okay. They reference Siegfried and Roy again later when they see Jake as a tiger. And they're listening to some music. Somebody says, sure I can't talk you into some Blink 182? Sounds like a Patreon episode.
You're trying to talk me into some Blink 182.
I am. I think that's it.
That's all. Oh, well, I mean, I had an earlier one. Marco says, like, all work and no play makes Marco a dull boy. Does that count?
No, that does
count?
not. No,
Okay.
That doesn't count.
Okay, that doesn't count then. Yeah, that's where I stopped. I didn't have any more.
Yeah, okay. Mercifully brief on that. We actually went longer than even with the email, I didn't have nearly as many notes this week as last week, but we somehow ended up talking a lot more about everything. So
I thought we were going to, once we got to the fight scene and we didn't immediately move on, I was like, oh shit, this is going to take forever. But actually, it could have been worse.
Could have been worse. Look, at the end of the series, like you said before, these are all going to be, there's big ones. We can't fuck around. Like, we're just going to have to take our time with it. This is a big deal.
It's just how it is. They're all going to be long.
All right. If you would like to email us again about anything Animorphs related, theyerkyboys@gmail.com is the place to go. And Patreon this week. Patreon.com/theyerkyboys. We're going to be discussing the movie Willow from the 80s, which has morphing in it. If you didn't know.
Yeah. If you like morphing, sign up for our Patreon. If you like yelling at us for our problematic words and views, email us. That's what you should do.
It's really, if you're listening to this, it's your fault if you're not giving a voice to people that are differently abled. We welcome your voice. It's your fault for not chiming in. We'd love to add your voice to the mix so that we could respect you and fuck. Anyway, you can follow me online, jonathanestis.com. Find my other stuff I do online and my social media or whatever if you want to follow me there.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about Book 51, The Absolute, in which Marco, ready for this one?
Okay.
Turns into a duck on the Yerky Boys.